Chapter 1092. Ning Cheng had the twin wings of the heavenly clouds. Even if he didn't spend much time on the twin wings of the heavenly clouds, the speed of the twin wings of the heavenly clouds was still top-notch. Ning Cheng's figure flashed as soon as he came out of the Cyan Wood attribute extreme grade God spirit vein. Whether it was his reaction speed or his forward speed, Ning Cheng had reached the limit. Even so, Ning Cheng wasn't the first to arrive. He had just arrived in front of the Wood attribute extreme grade God spirit vein when another Tao Essence Divine Emperor arrived at the same time. This Tao Essence Divine Emperor saw that Ning Cheng, a mere Tao Transformation Divine Emperor, dared to snatch the extreme grade God spirit vein. He snorted and grabbed the extreme grade God spirit vein with one hand while his other hand swept up a spirit essence whirlpool towards Ning Cheng. A powerful spirit essence explosion came, and Ning Cheng suddenly felt the space around him freeze. Even breathing became difficult. If Ning Cheng was still a Tao sculpting Divine Emperor, he would have gone as far as he could. However, a mid-stage Tao Essence Divine Emperor wanted to turn him into ashes without using any magic treasures. This guy really thought too highly of himself. Ning Cheng's figure slightly distorted, and the surrounding space surged with ripples one after another. Ning Cheng rushed out, and the spirit essence whirlpool that was rushing towards Ning Cheng directly slammed into the black mud below. The next moment, Ning Cheng's void cold light spear shot out. The void cold light spear blasted open the Tao Essence Divine Emperor's domain, and the cold spear intent swept up spear pattern Tao runes. Puff! Blood splashed out. The Tao Essence Divine Emperor was careless, and Ning Cheng's void cold light spear tore his skin. An extremely dangerous aura surged over, and the Tao Essence Divine Emperor no longer dared to snatch the extreme grade Wood attribute God spirit vein. He quickly broke free from Ning Cheng's Tao runes and dodged. At the same time, a blood pestle with dense killing intent appeared in his hand. This was the first time he met a Tao Transformation Divine Emperor who could force a Tao Essence Divine Emperor to retreat. It was simply an insult to him. Ning Cheng and the mid-stage Tao Essence Divine Emperor only fought for a moment, and in that moment, two more Tao Essence Divine Emperors rushed over. The two were surprised that Ning Cheng, a Tao Transformation Divine Emperor, could stop a Tao Essence Divine Emperor. However, they didn't hesitate and immediately tried to snatch the God Spirit Vein. The God Spirit Vein didn't get snatched, and there were four more Divine Emperors confronting each other above the extreme grade God Spirit Vein. At this moment, the Tao Essence Divine Emperor blood pestle that was injured by Ning Cheng had already rolled up. The sky full of blood shadows wrapped around Ning Cheng, and a few blurry shadows of blood appeared in the middle of the blood shadows. It was as if several poisonous snakes had opened their mouths wide. The closer they got to Ning Cheng, the clearer the mouths became. Ning Cheng could even clearly see the fierce blood-red fangs. A raging wave of imposing aura locked down the space around Ning Cheng. No matter which direction Ning Cheng moved to, he would eventually be torn apart and swallowed by that bloody mouth. Unless Cheng's strength crushed the opponent and could easily. And Cheng wouldn't move. If Yellow Dragon Bridge, he Spirit Essence Whirlpool, he Yellow Spirit Cheng would take the Yellow River Yellow Spirit Tea, he doubt create Yellow Chen Yang Dragon of Hell. With the fourth Yellow Springs Bridge, he would definitely be able to wipe out the spatial blood shadow divine art that was moving towards him. The blood shadow howled, almost completely covering Ning Cheng's figure. The void cold ray spear in Ning Cheng's hand rolled up countless spear patterns around his body. These spear patterns blocked the bloody shadow, and the spatial collapse around Ning Cheng suddenly appeared. Balls of incomparably hot flames exploded in the middle of the collapsed void, like an exploding atomic bomb. After the atomic bomb exploded, a mushroom cloud soared into the sky, while the void around Ning City collapsed infinitely. The space sank, but the flames really burst out. Ning Cheng rarely used this spirit technique, the Maximal Flame Spirit Technique. The Maximal Flame Spirit Technique had originally been passed down to Ning Cheng by Tsang Wei. At that time, Ning Cheng hadn't yet mastered the laws of space. Therefore, he could only absorb fire-attributed energy to create a false spatial collapse. Now that Ning Cheng had already touched the laws of space, the maximal flame spirit technique he used this time was indeed the real maximal flame spirit technique. Not only was the spatial collapse real, but even the flames were real. This flame was not a nameless flame, but Ning City's celestial river. Now that the Star River flame had evolved into a god flame, its value would not be any lower than the Seven Bridges spirit art. However, in this kind of place, if he wanted to completely preserve his strength, Ning Cheng did not have the ability to do so. If he continued to preserve his strength, he would be blasted into nothingness. Boom! 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 The maximal flame divine art exploded out of nowhere and combined with the spatial collapse to blow up the blood shadow. Although the heat wave couldn't hurt the Tao Essence Divine Emperor, it roasted the four blood mouths that charged towards Ning Cheng and made them shriek. This made Ning Cheng realize that the blood mouths in the blood shadow spirit technique had souls. Although he wasn't injured, the Tao Essence Divine Emperor still stepped aside in shock and didn't continue to attack Ning Cheng. He started to suspect that Ning Cheng wasn't a Tao Actualization Divine Emperor but a Tao Essence Divine Emperor. At this moment, a muddy smell burst out from the ground. A 1,000-meter-long extreme-grade wood attribute God Spirit pulse shot out of the black mud and disappeared into the palm of a gray-haired man. Including Ning Cheng, the few people fighting for the wood attribute extreme-grade God Spirit vein all stopped. No one dared to go forward. This was because the person who came was a Primordial Essence Divine Emperor. Although there weren't many Primordial Essence Divine Emperors here, there were still a few. It would be strange if a Tao Essence Divine Emperor dared to say anything when this Primordial Essence Divine Emperor came to snatch the Extreme Grade God Spirit vein. After the Primordial Essence Divine Emperor put away the Extreme Grade would attribute God Spirit vein, he looked at Ning Cheng and chuckled, "Your spirit technique is average, but your flame is not bad." Ning Cheng's heart tightened. If this person wanted to snatch his flame, what should he do? With such a close distance, it would be hard to even walk. However, he guessed that this Primordial Essence Divine Emperor wouldn't go so far as to snatch his flame. The Celestial River Flame was good, but the Celestial River Flame had an owner now. As long as he didn't willingly erase his imprint, the flame wouldn't be a treasure in someone else's hands but a life-threatening talisman. Unless this person didn't want to snatch anything else, he would immediately grab him and take him away. Ning Cheng believed that the other party wouldn't do that. Even if the other party wanted the Celestial River Red, he would wait until this matter was over. Sure enough, this Primordial Essence Divine Emperor only said one sentence before turning around and leaving. It seemed that he didn't care about Ning Cheng's flame at all. The other Tao Essence Divine Emperors knew that Ning Cheng wasn't an ordinary person. After the Extreme Grade God Spirit vein was snatched away, they didn't speak any nonsense and went to other places to snatch it. This place stretched as far as the eye could see, so there was no need to squeeze together. Ning Cheng didn't continue to snatch the God Spirit vein. With his strength, even if a Tao Essence Divine Emperor was here, he would still have a chance to snatch the Extreme Grade God Spirit vein. But in front of a Primordial Essence Divine Emperor, he didn't stand a chance. Ning Cheng sighed. Only by bringing out all his strength could he reap any harvest. Not to mention the 7 bridges and the 5-colored star splitter arrow, Ning Cheng didn't even want to take out the none to depend on spirit technique. Just now, he had taken out the Celestial River Flame for the Extreme Grade God Spirit vein, but he still couldn't obtain it. Looking at some weaker cultivators fighting over middle grade or even low grade God Spirit veins, Ning Cheng decided to escape. It wouldn't be appropriate to stay here any longer. Even if another Extreme Grade God Spirit vein appeared, it would be difficult for him to obtain it with his strength. Once he figured it out, Ning Cheng suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. As long as the word greed disappeared from his mind, everything became clear. With the twin wings of the heavenly clouds flashing a few more times, Ning Qing quickly left the Black Clay Canyon and entered the depths of the Jialiang Mountain. As long as Mang Yong didn't die, he would definitely contact him after reaching Tao Essence. Not long after Ning Qing left, the grey-robed primordial essence Divine Emperor, who had snatched the extreme grade God Spirit Vein, suddenly exclaimed. He found that his target had disappeared. From the looks of it, he knew that it was dangerous and didn't want to stay here. The primordial essence Divine Emperor smiled and didn't care about it. If things had ended here and Ning Qing hadn't left, he wouldn't have minded following Ning Qing and obtaining Ning Qing's celestial river flame. But now that Ning Qing had left, he wouldn't waste time on a celestial river flame that had already recognized him as its master and advanced to the level of a god flame. If the flame's grade was still low, maybe he would have thought about snatching it back. Ning Qing didn't know that his caution had allowed him to escape. At this time, he had already bypassed the Black Clay Canyon and entered another deeper canyon. This canyon looked a bit narrower than the Black Clay Canyon. It was so deep that one couldn't even see the end of it with one's spiritual consciousness. The canyon floor looked like a tortoise's shell, with cracks everywhere and crisscrossing each other. There were also some dead tree roots. God knows how many tens of thousands of years had passed, but these tree roots still hadn't decayed. What puzzled Ning Qing was that even after entering this canyon for so long, his spiritual consciousness hadn't found a single person. He didn't know if everyone had gone to the Black Clay Canyon to compete for the God Spirit Vein. It was a pity that he had exposed the celestial river Scarlet. Otherwise, it would have been nice to get a few high-grade God Spirit Veins. You've got some guts. You even dared to come to the Fallen Soul Gorge. A calm voice arrived, followed by a grey-robed figure landing not far from Ning Qing. Ning Qing didn't move. Before this voice arrived, he had already seen this man in a grey robe. This man had early-stage Tao essence cultivation. Ning Qing had seen this fellow in the Black Clay Canyon before. He didn't expect this fellow to follow him when he left the Black Clay Canyon. Ning Qing didn't even need to think about it to know what this fellow was after. It was the celestial river flame. An early-stage Tao essence fellow dared to snatch his celestial river flame. Ning Qing had never been to the Jialiang Mountain, and this was the first time he had heard of the Fallen Soul Gorge. Just when Ning Qing thought about the dangers of the Fallen Soul Gorge, this Tao Essence Holy Emperor spoke up in a cold voice, "Hand over the celestial river flame or die. Don't even think about using your flame spirit technique to deal with me. In my eyes, it's just child's play." Ning Qing didn't even bother to answer this time. With a slight flash of the twin wings of the heavenly clouds, he directly entered the depths of the Fallen Soul Gorge. To kill this Tao Essence Holy Emperor in the shortest time, he had to use the 5-colored star splitter arrow. This place was the entrance to the gorge. Once he used the 5-colored star splitter arrow, it would be hard to guarantee that no powerhouse would sense his aura. Ning Qing hadn't been in the Jialiang Mountain for a long time, but he knew that there were too many powerhouses here. Chapter 1093. You want to leave? The Tao Essence Divine Emperor sneered when he saw Ning Qing trying to escape in the Fallen Soul Gorge. He didn't rush in front of Ning Qing but followed behind Ning Qing at a leisurely pace. Ning Qing was worried about powerhouses coming over, but he was also worried about being discovered by Primordial Essence Divine Emperor. After all, he wanted to snatch Ning Qing's celestial river flame. Although the celestial river god flame wasn't the top flame, it was at the top of the rankings. Even the 7 lights in Jialiang Mountain couldn't compare to it. The Fallen Soul Gorge was dangerous, but as long as he didn't go deep into the Fallen Soul Gorge, he would be fine. After the two ran for half an hour, the Tao Essence Divine Emperor felt that it was about time. If he fought here, he would be in danger if he went any deeper. Just when the Tao Essence Divine Emperor was about to make a move, Ning Qing, who was running in front of him, suddenly stopped. Then, a spear mark tore through space and shot towards him. The powerful spear Tao killing intent almost filled the entire space that the two could feel. The Tao Essence Divine Emperor knew that Ning Cheng was powerful, but he was still shocked when he saw Ning Cheng's spear Tao killing intent. However, it was impossible for him to escape from him with just this little bit of skill. Law Tao runes spread out from his body, and Ning Cheng's spear marked killing intent quickly weakened under the Law Tao runes. In just a few breaths, the Tao Essence Divine Emperor resolved Ning Cheng's traceless spear intent and retreated to the canyon wall. At the same time, a dark green light appeared above his head. As the green light flashed, the laws of heaven and earth around him changed. Ning Cheng's familiarity with the laws solidified in an instant, and the Tao charm aura around Ning Cheng's body also became stagnant, no longer as smooth as before. A green light that tore through space appeared in front of Ning Cheng's eyebrows the moment Ning Cheng's Tao runes stopped. Ning Cheng didn't expect Traceless to kill an early-stage Tao Essence Divine Emperor. He only used Traceless to force the Tao Essence Divine Emperor back a little and let him get closer to the canyon wall. The moment the Tao Essence Divine Emperor got close to the canyon wall and was about to bring out the five-colored star splitter arrow, the laws around him suddenly paused. Ning Cheng felt the flow of Tao charm around him becoming sluggish. The other party made a move. He had never seen such a divine ability before. It could instantly change the aura of the surrounding laws and put the opponent in a desperate situation. If he dared to bring out the five-colored star splitter arrow at this time, it would be equivalent to courting death. At this moment, Ning Cheng could even smell the aura of death. Such a powerful spirit technique. Just before the green light pierced through Ning Cheng's glabella, Ning Cheng forcibly brought out the everlasting Blue Thunder City by relying on his starry sky sea of consciousness. Boom! When the green light struck the everlasting Blue Thunder Fort, Ning Cheng felt as if his entire body was being torn apart by this kind of power, followed by bursts of stabbing pain in his sea of consciousness, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. So strong. Ning Cheng was shocked. It wasn't that this Tao Essence Divine Emperor was strong, but that this Tao Essence Divine Emperor could instantly change the laws. Fortunately, his sea of consciousness was powerful, and he also possessed the everlasting Blue Thunder City. Otherwise, it would be hard to say who would emerge as the winner. Too careless. Sure enough, he was too careless. He shouldn't have brought out the void cold light spear. He should have brought out the five-colored star splitter arrow. This was due to his lack of combat experience. Next time, he would never give up the initiative for a small advantage. Ning Cheng secretly made up his mind. With a wave of his hand, countless spirit auras blasted out. This was his law-breaking spirit technique. Even if the other party had a spirit technique that could change the laws of heaven and earth, he had to break the laws of this spirit technique. Under Ning Cheng's law-breaking spirit technique, the surrounding laws that made Ning Cheng's Tao charm stagnate quickly melted away. Almost at the same time that Ning Cheng's Tao essence started to flow smoothly, Ning Cheng brought out the five-colored star splitter arrow. Everlasting Blue Thunder City. This Tao Essence Divine Emperor was obviously a knowledgeable person. As soon as he saw the everlasting Blue Thunder City, he immediately recognized it. When he confirmed that Ning Cheng had brought out the everlasting Blue Thunder City, this Tao Essence Divine Emperor could no longer contain the crazy joy in his eyes. This time, not only did he have the celestial river flame, but he also had the everlasting Blue Thunder City. No, at this moment, he felt a change in his spirit technique that froze the laws of heaven and earth. The other party also seemed to have a lore-related spirit technique that could break his lore-related spirit technique. Before this Tao Essence Divine Emperor could recover, a terrifying killing intent swept over. It felt as if the entire world had turned into dust. It was terrifying and ferocious. A long arrow with increasingly dense killing intent floated above a five-colored longbow. It swept away all the killing power in the surrounding space. The grayness of death spread out, and the originally lifeless canyon lost all its color. This turned out to be the five-colored star splitter arrow. If he knew that Ning Cheng had the five-colored star splitter arrow a minute ago, he would have trembled with excitement. At the same time, he would never have let Ning Qing shoot the five-colored star splitter arrow. But now, he could only feel regret. The five-colored star splitter arrow had locked onto him. With his current strength, he had no chance of escaping. At this moment, all he could think of was death, despair, and despair. He screamed frantically in his heart. Why did this puny Tao transformation divine emperor have heaven-defying treasures like the celestial river flame and the everlasting blue thunder city, and also the five-colored star splitter arrow? The color of the arrow gradually faded, leaving only the five-colored mottled arrow that grew more and more gorgeous as it circled around him. Like the most venomous viper, it stuck out its long red tongue and stared at him. This was the first time Ning Qing used the five-colored star splitter arrow after advancing to the Tao transformation realm. As his cultivation improved, the five-colored star splitter arrow's requirements also increased. After he brought out the five-colored star splitter arrow, his spirit essence started to drain out. Fortunately, he didn't suffer the same fate as when he advanced to the eternal realm or Tao sculpting realm. Although his spirit essence and spiritual consciousness had been drained, he could still hold on. He didn't have to burn his essence, blood and lifespan. With this gap, Ning Qing carefully observed his five-colored star splitter arrow with his spiritual consciousness for the first time. At this moment, Ning Qing felt as if a gray vortex of death had formed in front of the five-colored star splitter arrow. Any life, as long as it was locked in this vortex of death, would eventually die. The five-colored bow grew rounder and rounder, and its color grew brighter and brighter. However, the arrow grew weaker and weaker. The murderous aura tore through space, and the entire world turned silent. It seemed to be waiting for one thing, death. Let me go, and I'll tell you a secret. The Tao Essence Divine Emperor seemed to know that any struggle under the five-colored star splitter arrow was futile. Therefore, he still tried to escape from Ning Qing's arrow. Even if he regretted it, he would have to wait until he escaped from the arrow. No matter how old-fashioned the reason was, it was still a reason. Ning Qing didn't speak, and his posture didn't even change. As his cultivation grew stronger, the five-colored star splitter arrow took less and less time to activate. Do you know why I want your celestial river flame? The Tao Essence Divine Emperor remained calm. Ning Qing suddenly breathed out a sigh of relief and felt a lot more relaxed. He then spoke in a calm tone, many people under my five-colored star splitter arrow said that they had secrets, but they all died. As his voice fell, the five-colored star splitter arrow tore through the surrounding space and shot out with a sharp whistle. The boundless killing intent in the surroundings shot out together with this arrow, without holding back at all. I can make celestial river flame advance. The Tao Essence Divine Emperor had only said a few words when the five-colored star splitter arrow slammed into his glabella, causing a blood mist to erupt. Ning Qing weakly reached out and recalled the five-colored star splitter arrow. Just as he was about to grab the Tao Essence Divine Emperor's ring, he heard the canyon wall behind the Tao Essence Divine Emperor make a crashing sound. It seemed like it was about to collapse. Ning Qing secretly felt that the five-colored star splitter arrow was indeed powerful. He had heard from Mang Yong that because of the laws of heaven and earth, everything here was very solid. Even if it was a battle between powerhouses, it would be difficult to leave too much of a mark. But the five-colored star splitter arrow's aftermath had already caused the canyon wall to collapse. It was naturally very powerful. Something's wrong. Ning Qing no longer cared about grabbing the Tao Essence Divine Emperor's ring. Instead, he took a few steps back. The Tao Essence Divine Emperor, who he had just shot dead, had now disappeared without a trace. If it weren't for the few drops of blood splattered on the canyon wall, Ning Qing would have thought that it was an illusion. In just a moment, Ning Qing figured out what was going on. This was a natural concealment array formation. This array formation was too powerful. Even with his high attainments in the array Tao, he couldn't see through it. It was only because of the arrow that he had shot out that he discovered it. This wasn't just a natural concealment array formation. There were other problems. Otherwise, the Tao Essence Divine Emperor wouldn't have disappeared. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness fell on the concealment array formation and didn't find any problems. Only then did he carefully take a few steps forward. He couldn't bear to lose a Tao Essence Divine Emperor's ring. He had finally killed a big fish, but he didn't even get any harvest. How could he be willing to give up? Moreover, whether the Tao Essence Divine Emperor's last words were true or false, he still cared. What was the best way to snatch the God-grade flame that the other party had already refined? It wasn't to erase the flame's consciousness and refine it again, but to upgrade the God-grade flame. Ordinary God-grade flames already had consciousness, but this consciousness was still very weak. If someone could upgrade the flame by another level, coupled with the effect of refining it, it would be normal for the flame to change owners. The innate ability of a rare treasure like a top-grade flame was to advance. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness scanned the canyon wall over and over again, but he didn't find anything wrong with it. Even so, Ning Cheng didn't dare to approach the canyon wall rashly. He casually refined a low-level puppet and controlled it to move forward. The moment the puppet approached the canyon wall, a terrifying suction force swept over. The puppet didn't react at all before it was swept away by the violent vortex and disappeared. Even Ning Cheng, who was still some distance away, felt the powerful suction force of the vortex. The power of the vortex almost swept Ning Cheng away. Ning Cheng was shocked. He madly burned his essence blood and used the twin wings of the heavenly clouds to fly out. After standing a few hundred meters away, Ning Cheng was shocked as he looked at the canyon walls that still had not changed a moment ago. If he had not been a bit more cautious, then he would have ended up like that puppet, and would have disappeared. Chapter 1094. Since you have come, then leave your soul behind, and you can go. Ning Cheng was still in a daze, when a voice suddenly appeared in Ning Cheng's mind. Ning Cheng suddenly retreated, while his spiritual consciousness crazily swept out. There was no living creature in his divine sense, not even a fluctuation. At this time, Ning Cheng's entire sea of consciousness shook, and his life essence felt as if it was about to leave his body, making him unable to control it. Ning Cheng felt greatly shocked in his heart. He cultivated the mysterious yellow formless, the grand Tao of returning to one, which allowed his life essence and his corporeal body to almost merge into one. Without his control, how could his primordial spirit leave his body? But at this moment, he just couldn't control his primordial spirit. It was a terrifying thing for a cultivator to be unable to control his own primordial spirit. Once his primordial spirit left his body and could not return to it, he would completely become a walking corpse. Whether or not his primordial spirit could gain consciousness depended on his luck. Ning Cheng hastily retreated, but no matter how fast he retreated, he could not control his life essence from overflowing. Fallen Soul Gorge, Ning Cheng suddenly understood the meaning of this name. In this place, only life essence would perish. His domain crazily expanded outwards, while a series of spiritual consciousness attacks swept out, while the everlasting Blue Thunder City protected his life essence within his Zifu. Even if that was the case, Ning Cheng could only feel that his essence spirit had left his body at a slower pace. Over time, it would still go out of his control. Ning Cheng sucked in a mouthful of cold air, with his sea of consciousness and his cultivation method, he was the least afraid of being possessed. However, this was not a possession, but a primordial spirit that had mysteriously left his body. This place was a little too strange. Boom! Bursts of roaring sounds erupted from his sea of consciousness. Ning Cheng felt that his body was becoming more and more out of control, as his whole body was becoming more and more stiff. No, this can't go on. He was still a distance away from the entrance of the perishing Soul Gorge. With his speed, his primordial spirit would probably be completely trapped in the perishing Soul Gorge before he could escape. Ning Cheng desperately tried to control the overflow of his life essence, as he looked at the whirlpool hidden at the edge of the canyon. After hesitating for a moment, he finally decided to rush towards it. If he waited any longer, his primordial spirit would probably be completely separated from his physical body. Ning Cheng had just approached the whirlpool when a terrifying suction force swept over, directly sucking Ning Cheng away before disappearing from sight. The moment he was swept away by the whirlpool, the feeling of his primordial spirit being stripped from his body disappeared. Ning Cheng did not settle down, rather he was ready to enter the mysterious yellow bead at any time. Although his mysterious yellow bead's world was not perfect, it was almost equivalent to a real world. Once his small life was threatened, the exposure of the mysterious yellow bead was secondary. While being swept away by the whirlpool, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness remained in a sober state. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, two "kacha" sounds emerged, as Ning Cheng's feet finally landed on the ground. His surroundings were a misty white world. Beneath his feet was a few white bones that made a cracking sound. He didn't know how many years had passed, but the white bones had already turned into ashes. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness searched around and found that the corpse of the Tao Essence Holy Emperor he had killed before was gone. The low-level puppet that he had refined was lying not far away from him. However, its body had been cut into pieces by the Taoist rhyme. "Are you looking for the corpse that fell not long ago?" A voice that sounded like a mouse grinding its teeth appeared in Ning Cheng's ears. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness suddenly swept out, and found that he did not know when a thin shadow had appeared a few dozen meters away from him. "Who are you?" Ning Cheng subconsciously took a few steps back and raised his hand, causing the void cold light spear to appear in his palm. The thin shadow took a few steps forward and looked at Ning Cheng from head to toe for a while before saying, "When you stay here for a long time, you will naturally know who I am. That corpse is my trophy. Hand over his ring." Ning Cheng's Taoist rhyme flowed around his body, and his imposing aura vaguely revealed itself. He didn't necessarily want the ring. He just wanted to probe. This person must have been sucked in by the suction force of the whirlpool, just like him. Ning Cheng didn't know how long this fellow had lived. The thin shadow took a few more steps forward. This time, Ning Cheng could see it clearly. This fellow really looked like a mouse, with a sharp chin and a few sparse gray-white whiskers. His hair was also very sparse, with a few tufts here and there. Ning Cheng couldn't see his strength. He seemed strong, but he also didn't seem to pose any threat to him. "My name is Pu Mao, and I can tell you who took that ring. The reward is 2,000, no, 3,000 high-rank spirit crystals." The thin shadow gnashed his teeth and spoke. Ning Cheng stared at the thin man named Pu Mao in front of him. 3,000 spirit crystals. Did he hear it wrong? Even a Tao Essence Holy Emperor wouldn't bother to bend down to pick up 3,000 spirit crystals. Although Ning Cheng couldn't see the cultivation of this thin shadow, he knew that it definitely wasn't just a Tao Essence cultivator. Such a person actually wanted to tell him who took the ring for 3,000 spirit crystals. "You're not alone here." Ning Cheng put away his surprise and asked calmly. Pu Mao chuckled again, "There are so many people here that you might feel desperate. Don't worry, you just came here and still have the capital to stand. As long as you give me another 1,000 spirit crystals, I will tell you everything about this place." Ning Cheng raised his hand and threw out 5,000 spirit crystals. "These are for you. Tell me who took the ring, and what the hell is going on here." Pu Mao saw Ning Cheng throw out a pile of spirit crystals, and his eyes lit up. He rushed over and picked up the pile of spirit crystals. He even grabbed a few and threw them into his mouth. Crunching sounds could be heard as he chewed on them with an intoxicated look on his face. Was this how spirit crystals were used? Ning Cheng looked at this thin man as if he was looking at a monster. Besides, the spirit chi here wasn't weak. Was there a need to do this? No, Ning Cheng immediately understood when he thought of the spirit chi here. The spirit chi here didn't look weak, but he couldn't absorb even a trace of it. It felt like he was in the middle of the sea, but he couldn't drink a single drop of water. Even the spirit chi here had been sealed by someone. Who was it? Who had such great power? It was terrifying to be able to let people feel the spirit qi but not be able to absorb even a little bit of it. Pu Mao didn't care about Ning Cheng's gaze. He put away the spirit crystals and glanced greedily at Ning Cheng's ring before saying, "The person who took the ring is called Fei Si. He's the most abominable person. Most of the rings that wandered in here were taken by him. What's his cultivation level?" Ning Cheng asked with some apprehension. He wasn't worried about getting the ring back, but how many experts were there here? Would these guys also take away his ring? He's just a late-stage primordial chaos cultivator. Pu Mao's words made Ning Cheng feel a chill down his spine. A mere late-stage primordial chaos cultivator, let's go. Since you've paid me, I'll take you to teach him a lesson and take back what belongs to you. Pu Mao was in a good mood. He waved his hand and turned around to leave. Ning Cheng quickly said, "There's no hurry. Tell me what's going on here first. You seem to have been here for a long time. What kind of joke was this? How could he, a sacred emperor who had just advanced to the Tao transformation, teach a late-stage primordial chaos a lesson? He hadn't lived long enough." Pu Mao didn't care about Ning Cheng's words. After taking out a few spirit crystals and absorbing them, he asked, "Didn't you enter the Jiaoliang mountain?" "I entered the Jiaoliang mountain, but after entering the Fallen Soul Gorge, I accidentally got sucked in." Ning Cheng spoke honestly. "Hee, Fallen Soul Gorge." Pu Mao sneered. After a while, he said with a slightly serious tone, "This place is called the Perpetual Moon Gate. After coming here, you'll have to stare at this place forever, with no chance of getting out." Perpetual Moon Gate. Ning Cheng immediately thought of the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor who left behind the Time Wilderness and the Perpetual Moon Pill named after him. Did this Perpetual Moon Gate have something to do with the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor? The person who opened this place is called Ji Fengyu. He's a madman through and through. At this point, Pu Mao's eyes flashed with a trace of fear. Ning Cheng could tell that Pu Mao was afraid of this Ji Fengyu. He changed the topic and asked, "What's Ji Fengyu's name? Also, is there no exit here? Even if there was no exit, could this place trap a primordial chaos holy emperor?" This was what Ning Cheng felt the most puzzled about. However, he also guessed that the Perpetual Moon Gate and the Fallen Soul Gorge were two different things. Although one could enter the Perpetual Moon Gate from the Fallen Soul Gorge, it did not mean that it was the same place. Pu Mao no longer felt the joy of obtaining the 5,000 spirit crystals. Instead, he spoke in a flat tone, "His name is Perpetual Moon. There is indeed an exit here. When you see the exit, you will understand why this place is called the Perpetual Moon Gate. I don't know if I've stayed here for millions of years, or even tens of millions of years. In the future, you will understand what true loneliness is. Unable to cultivate, idling about, and not reaching the end of one's lifespan, maybe." Pu Mao finally stopped talking, and his eyes filled with sorrow. Ning Cheng grew more and more horrified. He did not know if this Ji Fenyu, called Perpetual Moon, had anything to do with the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor who left behind the Time Wilderness. Pu Mao had been left here by the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor for millions of years, yet he still showed such fear. From this, one could tell how terrifying Ji Fengyu was. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng suddenly asked, "Is it because you stayed here for countless years, constantly consuming your energy and essence, causing your cultivation to decline?" Pu Mao showed a bitter smile, "That's right. I was a peak primordial chaos powerhouse back then, but now I can only pray for a few thousand spirit crystals. Life is full of changes." Ning Cheng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he understood what was going on. He had just come in, so he still had plenty of essence qi. Even if he could not absorb the spirit qi here, he did not fear a primordial chaos holy emperor who had consumed his energy for millions of years. "Thank you, Brother Pu. Please take me to see Fei Si, who took my ring." After Ning Cheng calmed down, he naturally wanted to find the Tao Essence Holy Emperor's ring. He wanted to know if the Tao Essence Holy Emperor's ring, which he had killed, contained any news about the true young heart. Of course. Without saying anything else about Ji Fengyu, Pu Mao returned to his original appearance and quickly walked in front of Ning Cheng, pretending to lead the way. Chapter 1095. From Pu Mao's words, Ning Cheng knew that there were many places to enter the Perpetual Moon Gate, and he had only entered one of them. Not long ago, after Fei Si snatched the Tao Essence Holy Emperor's ring, he was afraid that someone would come in and find him, so he immediately escaped. The reason why Pu Mao knew about this was that he was also nearby. Moreover, he and Fei Si had always had a grudge against each other. This time, he could obtain the spirit crystal and let others teach Fei Si a lesson, which was naturally the best thing for Pu Mao. However, Pu Mao didn't tell Ning Cheng that Fei Si wasn't alone, but had a small group. Ning Cheng sighed in his heart. Sure enough, where there were people, there would be rivers and lakes. If it were any other place, why would a primordial essence holy emperor do such a tasteless thing? No matter how arrogant a primordial essence holy emperor was, he wouldn't be able to maintain his arrogance in the face of life and death or losing his strength. Arrogance was based on supreme strength or strong self-confidence. Without strength, self-confidence would naturally melt away. Walking through this white and misty space, the surroundings gradually brightened up. Ning Cheng could see that this was caused by some bright light arrays, with some irregular boulders scattered all over the place. After half an incense stick's worth of time, Ning Cheng finally saw the rest of the people. Several thin cultivators sat in front of a boulder that was dozens of feet high, motionless. If Ning Cheng hadn't sensed the aura of these people, he would have thought that they were dead. They're trying to sense the Tao charm and Tao charm of a spirit formation. Seeing Ning Cheng's confusion, Pu Mao calmly explained. Sense the Tao charm. Ning Cheng raised his head in confusion and suddenly saw several Tao patterns carved on the boulder. Each of these Tao patterns seemed to have a life of its own. They tumbled and pulsed, constantly emitting various Tao charm laws. A vast and majestic primordial universe rushed over, causing Ning Cheng to immediately stop in his tracks. Such Tao charm, who left this behind? If he comprehended it here for a few years, what would happen to him? Ning Cheng's gaze could no longer move away as the Tao charm aura on this boulder attracted his attention. Waves of majestic aura circulated in his sea of consciousness, and all kinds of comprehensions seemed to be able to be grasped by him at any time. That kind of feeling was neither close nor distant, and with a little effort, he would be able to grasp it. It made his heart itch unbearably. What a majestic and deep Tao charm aura. The Tao charm laws around Ning Cheng's body also started to flow at this moment. Pu Mao looked at Ning Cheng with a complicated look and suddenly said, if you want to understand the Tao charm laws like them, you can find many of these Tao pattern boulders in front of you. It doesn't necessarily have to be here. He decided to remind Ning Cheng, if Ning Cheng could not come to his senses, then he would have to leave. Regardless of whether Ning Cheng came to realize it or not, countless years later, there would be one more person like them in this place. It was not a big deal. Ning Cheng's Tao charm that was circulating within his body paused for a moment, and the mysterious yellow aura washed over the Tao charm that he had just comprehended, allowing Ning Cheng's consciousness to leave the boulder and turn around. Tao friend Pu, did you say that there are many boulders with such Tao charm here? Seeing Ning Cheng wake up so easily, Pu Mao nodded in amazement, as his view of Ning Cheng instantly changed. Back then, he had comprehended in front of these boulders for millions of years, but in the end, he still faced the fate of his vitality drying up. That's right. There are many boulders with Tao charm here. Along the way, there are many of these boulders. Some of them are more than 10 times bigger than this one, and the aura of Tao charm is even more majestic. In front of these boulders, many people sit and comprehend the Tao charm of the Grand Tao. Even after turning into bones, many people still sit in front of these boulders. Pu Mao said with a sigh. Isle of Heroes. Ning Cheng subconsciously murmured. He knew that the name Isle of Heroes was made up by Hero Jean, but the situation here was very similar to the Isle of Heroes. These traces of Tao charm in line with the laws of heaven and earth were like endless martial arts manuals that attracted the attention of cultivators. As a result, they ended up spending all their time and energy here, and even their lives. What is the Isle of Heroes? Pu Mao asked instead. Ning Cheng shook his head, it's nothing. Take me to see that Fei Si. You can come and see these traces of Tao charm at any time. Seeing Ning Cheng really stop and continue comprehending the traces of Tao charm from these boulders, Pu Mao felt even more shocked. How could a holy emperor who could cultivate to the Tao transformation realm not understand how precious and powerful these traces of Tao charm were? This person was definitely not ordinary. Okay, may I know your name? Pu Mao finally couldn't help but ask for Ning Cheng's name. He was a primordial essence holy emperor. Even if his cultivation level was infinitely weakened, he was still a primordial essence holy emperor. As a primordial essence holy emperor, he took the initiative to ask for a Tao transformation holy emperor's name. This was different from asking for spirit crystals. Even if he politely asked for spirit crystals from Ning Cheng, once he received the spirit crystals, he would forget about Ning Cheng in the blink of an eye. My name is Ning Cheng replied with a smile as his gaze landed on another boulder not far away. Just as Pu Mao said, there were too many boulders with Tao charm along the way. Almost every boulder had someone comprehending the Tao charm aura. These boulders were also left behind by that Ji Fengyu. Ning Cheng retracted his gaze from the boulders and asked Pu Mao. Pu Mao nodded, yes, he's the top genius and the most powerful cultivator in the vast universe. Only he can carve such a majestic Tao charm trace that fits the laws of heaven and earth. Even though he was afraid of Ji Fengyu, Pu Mao still acknowledged Ji Fengyu's strength. Then he's at the third step of Tao validation? Ning Cheng asked immediately. He still hadn't figured out what the third step of Tao validation was. Nianyan was the one who gave him the most complete explanation. Unfortunately, Nianyan was also trying to figure it out. Pu Mao's tone actually lost a trace of the rat's teeth grinding sound. He even stopped and replied clearly, yes, he's at the third step. Ning Cheng could even feel his own excitement. He asked even more urgently, then what is the third step of Tao validation? How can one reach the third step of Tao validation? Pu Mao, did you just arrive? You actually have such a strong essence qi fluctuation and such pure qi and blood. A sudden voice interrupted Ning Cheng's words. Then, a tall man landed in front of Ning Cheng and Pu Mao. This man was tall, but he was also skinny, which didn't match his large frame. His name is Wu Lin. His cultivation level is similar to mine, but he's now far stronger than me. Moreover, over the years, his strength hasn't fallen to the second step. Pu Mao didn't answer the tall man's question but explained to Ning Cheng. Just when he was about to find out what the third step of Tao validation was, someone actually came to disturb him. Ning Cheng felt very unhappy, but he didn't show it. The people here were at least Tao essence holy emperors. Moreover, his cultivation level was probably the worst here. It wasn't worth offending someone over such a trivial matter. Tao transformation. Wu Lin looked at Ning Cheng and smiled, sure enough, you're a newcomer. Give me your ring and follow me from now on. After confirming that Ning Cheng was a newcomer, Wu Lin's tone became even more joyful. If he didn't ask for Ning Cheng's ring first, he wouldn't be able to get it once other people found out about it. Wu Lin interrupted his inquiry. Pu Mao was at the third step of Tao validation, which made Ning Cheng unhappy. He didn't expect this fellow to ask him to hand over his ring. Ning Cheng's anger instantly surged. For a cultivator, asking you to hand over your ring was equivalent to asking for your life. Whether Wu Lin intended to take Ning Cheng's life or not, Ning Cheng didn't intend to let it go. It had been some time since he entered this place. Through Pu Mao's introduction and his own observations, he could feel that the Tao charm and essence qi in this place had dropped drastically. Some primordial chaos holy emperors only had ordinary Tao sculpting cultivations. Moreover, Wu Lin's Tao charm aura was much stronger than Pu Mao's. According to Ning Cheng's observations, Wu Lin's strength should be equivalent to Tao essence. However, Wu Lin's Tao essence definitely wasn't too strong. Ning Cheng had just come in from the outside, so he had plenty of spirit essence and Tao charm. Therefore, he didn't fear Wu Lin. At this moment, Wu Lin wanted to ask Ning Cheng for his ring. Ning Cheng didn't even answer. Instead, he brought out the void cold light spear and shot out a spear pattern. Ning Cheng didn't know how long he would have to stay in the Perpetual Moon sect. If he wanted to survive here, he had to come up with some means. Otherwise, if people came looking for him every day, he wouldn't be able to survive. Ning Cheng immediately used the Spear Tao Intent Spirit technique, Sunset's Twilight. Time and space stagnated, and a setting sun descended from the distance. Under the poignant setting sun, the cold killing intent of the void cold light spear was hidden within the intent. The setting sun was infinitely beautiful, but dusk was approaching. Wu Lin only felt slightly startled before being captivated by the Tao charm of dusk. At this moment, he remembered that he hadn't seen such a beautiful setting sun for a long time. It wasn't until the cold-killing intent of the void cold light spear invaded his mind that Wu Lin suddenly woke up, and his body started to twist crazily. Ning Cheng's laws of time seemed to constrain the flow of time, but it couldn't constrain Wu Lin's body. Poof! A bloody light pierced through Wu Lin's ribs, but Wu Lin fell outside the setting sun. He didn't immediately fight back against Ning Cheng but stared at Ning Cheng and muttered to himself, "This is the setting sun's twilight under the laws of time. Only perpetual moon, perpetual moon." At this point, Wu Lin screamed, and his figure flashed before disappearing in an instant. Perpetual moon. Ning Cheng had comprehended sunset's twilight in the sea of twilight. What did it have to do with perpetual moon? Right, the Sea of Twilight was just a place in the time wilderness. Wasn't the time wilderness the world of the perpetual moon holy emperor? Did the laws of time he comprehended truly contain the inheritance of the perpetual moon holy emperor? Pu Mao's eyes also showed a similar look of horror. He stared at Ning Cheng in a sluggish manner until Ning Cheng called out to him. Only then did he wake up and quickly ask, "Tao friend Ning, did the laws of time spirit technique you just used really come from the perpetual moon holy emperor's inheritance?" Ning Cheng didn't answer Pu Mao's words but spoke up in a deep voice, "We'll talk about it later. First, answer my question. What is the third step of Tao confirming?" After blasting away Wu Lin's spear, Ning Cheng's confidence soared. Chapter 1096. Pu Mao also calmed down and looked at Ning Cheng with even more eagerness. If Ning Cheng really was Perpetual Moon's successor, then he might have a chance to leave this place. At this time, Ning Cheng once again asked about the third step of Tao confirming. He replied in a serious tone, "The third step of Tao confirming is to integrate the Tao of heaven and earth into one, and then condense your own law world. This is the first realm of the third step, the world creation realm. Ji Fengyu could reach the third step because he condensed his own world, but what?" Ning Cheng quickly asked. If Ji Fengyu truly left behind the time wilderness, then the perpetual moon holy emperor should have already fallen. How could a third step Tao confirming expert fall? Ning Cheng's heart surged with waves of shock. If a third step Tao confirming expert could fall, then who could survive? Pu Mao hesitated for a moment, but Ning Cheng quickly asked. He simply said, "The information I got might not be completely accurate. I heard that the battle between the third step powerhouses affected countless positional boundaries. According to people who came later, many positional boundaries laws were incomplete, and the universe no longer had a third step holy emperor. Ji Fengyu was a third step powerhouse and also participated in that battle. I don't know the outcome of the battle, but I heard that Ji Fengyu suffered heavy losses, and the law world he condensed completely shattered. The law of time and the law of space ended up in low-level positional boundaries. The reason why Wu Lin thought that you were Perpetual Moon's successor was that the law of time spirit technique you displayed had a hint of the Sea of Twilight. After Ning Cheng heard these words, he was even more shocked in his heart. He finally understood what the time wilderness was. The time wilderness, to put it bluntly, was just a condensation of the laws of time from the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor's world. Moreover, his sunset's twilight was just a corner of the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor's supreme spirit technique, the Sea of Twilight. Moreover, the Sea of Twilight within the time wilderness did not originally exist. It was just a manifestation of the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor's spirit technique. From this, it showed how powerful the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor was. Since the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor's law of time Tao charm could turn into the time wilderness, then the laws of space could also turn into a world. Ning Cheng instantly thought of the space crystal he obtained. At this moment, he felt almost 90% sure that it was the traceless gate of demon domain's traceless immortal pond. Even a powerhouse like the Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor had his world broken, and his Tao charm transformed into countless law domains. His ability was just like the light of a firefly. While the two of them were talking, Pu Mao had already brought Ning Cheng to a huge public square. The light in the square was slightly dimmer. Around the square, there were some immortals' cave residences arranged using magic treasures. That person is Phase, the one who took your ring. Pu Mao pointed to a blue-haired man in the distance and spoke to Ning Cheng. He did not continue to ask if Ning Cheng was Perpetual Moon's successor. Regardless of whether he was or not, Ning Cheng was worth befriending since he could scare away Wu Lin with his Tao transformation cultivation. Originally, by bringing Ning Cheng to this place, he had already completed his task. But now, in order to make friends with Ning Cheng, he did not leave this place. Ning Cheng also saw Fess in the distance. Fess was accompanied by 7 or 8 people. From the looks of it, this fellow had formed a small group here. Thinking of a group of second-step Tao confirming powerhouses forming a group here, just like street thugs, Ning Cheng secretly found it funny. He did not look for Fei Si immediately. Instead, he continued to ask, Tao friend Pu, why is that Wu Lin so much stronger than you? Not only is he stronger than you, but he's also stronger than most people. Pu Mao spoke with disdain, isn't it because he has the 5 elements chaos world? That madman Ji Fengyu does not allow any living world to exist here. Whether it is a miniature world or a true spirit world, they would all be squeezed into nothingness in this place. Only a world that surpasses the 5 elements chaos laws can exist here. I don't know what method Wu Lin used to conceal his 5 elements chaos world, but Ji Fengyu did not discover it. Later on, when others ran out of spirit crystals and their essence chi gradually depleted, he managed to preserve his strength in his 5 elements chaos world. His 5 elements chaos world has only recently formed, and it's not even perfect yet. Relying on the 5 elements chaos world for so many years without any law crystals to replenish it, Wu Lin's strength has started to decline, just like us. Ning Cheng felt secretly shocked. Fortunately, he did not take out his true spirit world. Fortunately, Yan Ji could enter the mysterious yellow bead. Otherwise, if the laws shattered it, he would not even have the chance to rescue her. The laws of the mysterious yellow bead far surpassed the 5 elements chaos world. No matter how powerful Ji Fengyu was, he could not use the laws here to affect his mysterious yellow bead. At this time, Fei Si and the others had already seen Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng's Tao charm flowed clearly, and his essence chi and vitality were exuberant. These people who stayed behind in the Perpetual Moon sect immediately understood that Ning Cheng had just arrived. Although Ning Cheng's cultivation had not reached the 2nd step, no matter how many good things a newly arrived sacred emperor had, not many people would be willing to talk to him. Come on, let's go and take a look. As for the other realms of the 3rd step, I'll ask you later. Ning Cheng walked towards Fei Si. Fei Si and the others saw Ning Cheng walking over and knew that Ning Cheng had come to find them. Therefore, before Ning Cheng could approach them, they took the initiative to walk towards Ning Cheng. Even before the two sides got close, most people already knew about it. For a time, many figures appeared around the public square. These people couldn't cultivate here, and they could only come and go in such a small space. It wasn't wrong to say that they were sitting here and waiting for death. One could say that these people had long since become bored to death. Now that there was a show to watch, everyone naturally wouldn't miss it. There were not many people here who were afraid of threatening them with death. Other than a few experts who had hidden themselves very deeply and had some foundation, no one was afraid of death. "You're called Fei Si." Ning Cheng looked at Fei Si and stopped in front of him. Fei Si had blue hair, and his eyes also had a blue tint that gave off a strange glow. Although he had lost the luster of his Dao charm, he still wasn't weak. His current strength should be higher than Pu Mao's. However, compared to Wu Lin, Fei Si should still be a bit weaker. According to Ning Cheng's guess, Fei Si's cultivation should have dropped to around the Dao transformation realm. Fei Si said calmly, "Are you new here? Do you know that newcomers have to share spirit crystals with everyone? Do you know that I have many brothers, so you want to share some spirit crystals with me?" Was this something a primordial chaos sacred emperor would say? Ning Cheng almost choked on his words. Why did he feel like he had met a small leader? Fei Si's words made Ning Cheng speechless. His words had indeed worked. Everyone's eyes fell on Ning Cheng. If Ning Cheng was new, then he must have a lot of spirit crystals on him. Although no one said that newcomers had to share spirit crystals with other cultivators, no one refuted Fei Si's words. Ning Cheng cupped his fists and said, "Fellow Dao friends, I'm indeed new here. I chased after a seriously injured Dao Essence Sacred Emperor and ended up killing him, causing him to fall into the Perpetual Moon sect. This Dao Essence Sacred Emperor had a ring on him. I originally planned to share all the crystal stones in the ring with everyone, but I didn't expect someone to snatch my loot and take the ring away. Fei Si was the one who snatched the ring. When I get the ring back, I will definitely share the crystal stones with everyone." None of the people here were weak. Even if they had been exhausted for tens of millions of years, Ning Cheng didn't dare to underestimate them. If Fei Si really instigated these people, then he would be in deep trouble. Ning Cheng's words sounded like a lie, but no one cared about it. As long as Ning Cheng handed over the ring and let everyone share it, it would be fine. As for the lies, who cared? Fei Si snorted when he saw that he couldn't incite everyone to deal with Ning Cheng. He raised his hand and brought out a huge drum. Before seeing Ning Cheng, he had been a little worried. After all, someone who could kill an early-stage Dao Essence Sacred Emperor had to be a Dao Essence Sacred Emperor. But now that he saw that Ning Cheng only had a Dao transformation cultivation, his worry disappeared. Even if he had exhausted his essence chi, he was still a primordial chaos expert. Fei Si brought out the big drum. Before he could even use any spirit techniques, the drum sounds trembled slightly, creating a circle of sound light attack Dao runes around him. "Everyone, let's go together and finish this as soon as possible." Fei Si finished speaking, and the first drum sound Dao rune blasted out. Boom! The powerful sound light Dao rune ignored Ning Cheng's domain and directly bombarded Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. Ning Cheng felt his entire head buzzing, and the nomological Dao runes around him started to shake and loosen. So strong! Ning Cheng was secretly shocked. The everlasting blue thunder city in his sea of consciousness immediately condensed and blocked the powerful drum sound bombardment. Fei Si's spiritual consciousness and spirit essence had declined, but his comprehension of the Tao hadn't declined. If this attack bombarded Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness would collapse if he wasn't careful. However, Fei Si's spirit essence and Tao runes had clearly declined too much, and Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness was too strong. The drum sound, which could have exploded Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness, only slightly injured Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness. When the other 7 or 8 people took out their magic treasures, Ning Cheng also attacked. The strongest person here was Fei Si. The others were at best on the same level as Pu Mao, or even weaker. These second-step Dao transformation divine emperors with powerful foundations, no matter how much their cultivation had declined, could still restrain an ordinary Dao transformation divine emperor. Ning Cheng wasn't an ordinary Dao transformation divine emperor. After the drum sound, he used his spirit technique, none to depend on. Against these old guys who had been trapped for countless years, intense spirit techniques were the most effective. Endless yellow sand rolled up, and an ancient path filled with nostalgia appeared at the end of the yellow sand. Was the person leading the skinny horse on the ancient path a friend? Or a lover? None to depend on, yellow sand rose. There was a skinny horse on the west wind ancient road relying on each other for a long time with tears. None to depend on, don't abandon your heart, looking at each other from afar, it's better to turn around and leave each other. Dao runes rolled out of the endless yellow sand and swept through the entire space. A few cultivators whose cultivation had declined to almost nothing burst into tears. They were all filled with melancholy, and they no longer had the strength to take out their magic treasures. The Dao runes of sadness and parting filled the air. At this moment, the void cold light spear swept up countless cold spear intents and appeared in front of Fei Si. Ning Cheng wasn't interested in killing those with weak cultivation. The reason he killed Fei Si was because of that ring. Boom! Fei Si's giant drum stopped in front of Ning Cheng's void cold light spear, and a dull explosion sounded. The drum's Dao runes also spread out at this moment, and Ning Cheng's none to depend on spirit technique instantly weakened. The west wind ancient road and the skinny horse disappeared, and the dimly lit square remained in front of him. Chapter 1097. Fei Si flew backwards and threw a ring at Ning Cheng. This is the Dao Essence Sacred Emperor's ring. I'll return it to you now. Count it, there are 16 million God crystals and 6 high-grade God spiritual veins. I didn't touch them at all. Just the none to depend on sacred art alone was enough for him to know that Ning Cheng wasn't someone to be trifled with. Fei Si felt sad in his heart. He was a primordial essence sacred emperor, but he couldn't beat Ning Cheng. Since when did a primordial essence sacred emperor have to steal a Dao essence sacred emperor's ring? Ning Cheng didn't make a move after Fei Si handed over the ring. He and Fei Si didn't have any deep enmity, not to mention that they were stranded in this place. Fei Si admitted defeat and handed over the ring, so there was no need for him to be aggressive. As for how many God crystals Fei Si said, it was obviously to trick Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng wanted to distribute these God crystals to everyone. If Ning Cheng wasn't willing to take them out, even if no one came to find trouble with Ning Cheng wouldn't be popular here anymore. Ning Cheng didn't care about Fei Si's tricks. He didn't even ask how many God crystals and God spiritual veins Fei Si left behind. His spiritual consciousness seeped into the ring and saw that the piles of materials weren't touched. The God spiritual herbs and God crystals were obviously not touched. Ning Cheng scanned through tens of thousands of jade slips with his spiritual consciousness, but he didn't see any jade slips about the true young heart. Ning Cheng put down the ring in disappointment. He stared at Fei Si and asked, I killed this person for the whereabouts of the true young heart. Why did the jade slip containing the whereabouts of the true young heart disappear? This sentence was completely Fei Si's. Ning Cheng didn't know if the ring contained the whereabouts of the true young heart. True young heart. Fei Si was stunned by Ning Cheng's words. He wouldn't care even if a true young heart was placed in front of him, let alone a jade slip containing the whereabouts of the true young heart. Dao friend Ning, I'm sure of this. Fei Si definitely left a jade slip with the whereabouts of the true young heart. This is the Jiaoliang mountain, and there are many places in the Jiaoliang mountain that have the true young heart. Many people know about this, so there's really no need. Although Pu Mao did not like Fei Si, he would not lie through his teeth. Ning Qing did not care that his words would cause people to despise him, as he quickly asked, Jiao Yang Mountain, are there any other places with true young hearts? I only know of the 10,000 Needles Lake and the Fiery Sun Forest. Pu Mao replied. At this time, another person in the crowd said, the Nine Origins Ice Cave also has a true young heart. Dao friend, when did you get those spirit crystals? Others could not even get a single true young heart, but Jiao Yang Mountain actually had so many. What the primordial chaos experts were concerned about was not the quintessential yang core, but when the 1 or 200,000 divine crystals would be distributed. Many thanks, but why does the Jiao Yang Mountain have so many true young hearts? Ning Qing asked in confusion. Seeing that Ning Qing had no intention of finding trouble with him, Fei Si felt slightly relieved in his heart. Although he returned the ring to Ning Qing, he kept at least a quarter of the spirit crystals. Now that Ning Qing didn't question him, it meant that the other party really didn't come here for the spirit crystals. If he had known about this earlier, he wouldn't have pointed out the number of spirit crystals in the ring. Thinking of this, Fei Si took the initiative to say, there used to be 9 sun stars on the top of the Jiao Yang Mountain. These 9 sun stars were affected by the battle and were either blasted away or shattered. The sun star on the Jiao Yang Mountain absorbed the true yang aura all year round and condensed all the true yang hearts. At least 5 or 6 of them landed in various places on the Jiao Yang Mountain. The 10,000 Needles Lake, the Fiery Sun Forest, and the 9 Origins Ice Cave are all places where the true young hearts landed. How do you know? Ning Qing thought to himself that the people here had been locked up for many years. During the battle between the Third Step Almighties, they might still be locked up here. After that battle, many people came to the Jiao Yang Mountain in search of treasures. This news was brought in by others, Pu Mao replied. So that was the case. Ning Qing knew that he had to consider how to get out now. Thinking about the sacred emperors here, be it knowledge or strength, none of them were weak. Ning Qing didn't continue to ask about other things. Fellow Taoists, my name is Ning Qing. I came here by accident. Now, there are 15 million divine crystals and 6 high-grade divine spirit meridians in this ring. My idea is that witnesses get a share. Each person gets 200,000 divine crystals and a section of divine spirit meridian. As for those who didn't come, you can still get a share if you come here. Ning Qing raised the ring in his hand and said loudly. Regardless of whether these people could get out or not, he used some divine crystals to befriend these second-step Tao confirming sacred emperors. There would only be benefits. If they were outside, not to mention 200,000 divine crystals, even 20 million divine crystals would only be enough to say a few words to a primordial chaos sacred emperor. Using divine crystals to befriend a primordial chaos sacred emperor was a joke in itself. After saying that, Ning Qing removed his disguise. Since we are all friends, it would be stingy to disguise myself. After spending so many divine crystals to befriend him, Ning Qing naturally didn't want to hide his identity. Everyone knew what Ning Qing meant, and no one objected. No matter what it meant, divine crystals were the real deal. Ning Qing wanted everyone to accept this favor, and everyone also accepted it. Dao friend Ning, this is the map of the Jiao Yang Mountain. It has the markings of the 10,000 Needle Lake, Fiery Sun Forest, and 9 Origins Ice Cave. As Ning Qing finished speaking, the atmosphere in the square suddenly heated up. Several sacred emperors even stuffed jade strips into Ning Qing's hands. I have a special jade strip for the 9 Origins Ice Cave. This is my cultivation experience. I have gained a lot of insights from the Tao charm on the Perpetual Moon Gates boulder. This is my insights Tao strip. In just a dozen breaths, Ning Qing had more than a dozen jade strips in his hands. Ning Qing also didn't hesitate to give out 15 million divine crystals and a few divine spirit meridians. There were only 40 people in the square, and he couldn't distribute all the divine crystals. However, he had said that it didn't matter if they were late. They could directly go to him for divine crystals. Ning Cheng's actions didn't go in vain. The most conspicuous place in the Perpetual Moon Gate Square became his cave residence. Not only that, but Ning Cheng's actions almost made him the most popular person in the entire Perpetual Moon Gate. No matter who it was, no matter what kind of powerhouse they were, they would all greet Ning Cheng when they saw him. Many powerhouses didn't even wait for Ning Cheng to take the initiative to ask before giving Ning Cheng a copy of their spirit techniques and insights. After living in the Perpetual Moon Gate for more than 10 days, Ning Cheng not only gave away the original 15 million divine crystals but also put in a few million himself. At the same time, Ning Cheng also learned that the only way out of the Perpetual Moon Gate was the Perpetual Moon Abyss. Not only did he know that the Perpetual Moon Abyss was the only way out of the Perpetual Moon Gate, but he also knew that the reason why there weren't any Tao Perfection powerhouses inside was because all Tao Perfection powerhouses had left the Perpetual Moon Abyss. Ning Cheng looked at Pang Yuan, the old man who explained the Perpetual Moon Gate's exit to the Perpetual Moon Abyss, and asked in confusion, since Tao Perfection powerhouses can go out, why don't Primordial Chaos Holy Emperors give it a try? What if they manage to get out? Pang Yuan was a veteran Primordial Chaos Holy Emperor. When Ji Fengyu left him in the Perpetual Moon Gate, he only had a little more than 10 million years left. Now that he had spent so many years in the Perpetual Moon Gate, regardless of whether he had spirit crystals or not, as long as he couldn't reach Tao Perfection in the next few 100,000 years, he would probably die of old age in the Perpetual Moon Gate. Because he was old and had a lot of knowledge, Ning Cheng pulled him over to ask about the Perpetual Moon Gate's exit. Pang Yuan shook his head. Those Tao Perfection Holy Emperors did go out, but it didn't take many years for them to come back. The only difference is that what came back were incomplete skeletons. The Perpetual Moon Abyss is filled with Tao charm, and it's hard to survive after entering. Even if some powerful Tao Perfection Holy Emperors were torn apart by the powerful Tao charm of the Perpetual Moon Abyss, some of their skeletons would still fly out. But once Holy Emperors below Tao Perfection enter, they would have nothing left. Pang Yuan spoke as if it was a joke, but Pang Yuan's eyes didn't show even half a smile. Instead, it showed a lot of sadness. Even if a Tao Perfection powerhouse wanted to pass through the Perpetual Moon Abyss, only a few skeletons would fly out. As for others, they would never be able to get out of there. Many thanks, Tao friend Pang. I'm going to check it out myself. Ning Cheng thanked him. Over the past 10 days, he had already checked the Perpetual Moon Gate countless times and asked many people here. Apart from the Perpetual Moon Abyss, which he hadn't explored, the Perpetual Moon Gate truly had no way out. Pang Yuan stood up with a smile but didn't say anything. Instead, he slowly turned around and left. Anyone who came to the Perpetual Moon Gate would go out to see if there was a way out. It wasn't unusual. To leave the Perpetual Moon Gate, more than a few Tao Perfection Holy Emperors had died in the Perpetual Moon Abyss. No one knew how many Tao fusion powerhouses had fallen in it. The reason why he told Ning Cheng that no one below Tao Perfection could enter the Perpetual Moon Abyss without even leaving behind a single bone was because of Ning Cheng's 200,000 spirit crystals. The Perpetual Moon Abyss, the only way out of the Perpetual Moon Gate. In fact, according to the living people of the Perpetual Moon Gate, many people had entered the Perpetual Moon Abyss, but none of them could get out. At this time, Ning Cheng stood at the edge of the Perpetual Moon Abyss. In any case, he had to find out if he could get out of the Perpetual Moon Abyss. The entrance to the Perpetual Moon Abyss was under a boulder with half of it extending outwards. This boulder was also engraved with all kinds of Tao charm patterns. Ning Cheng knew that these Tao charm patterns weren't something he could study. Therefore, he didn't look at these Tao charm patterns and stood directly on the boulder. The boulder felt like a tumbling quagmire in front of it, which made it difficult to extend one's spiritual consciousness out. However, in the endless abyss below the boulder, one could only hear bursts of dull roars. This was the perpetual moon abyss. Ning Cheng spent a lot of effort before he managed to penetrate it with his spiritual consciousness. Just as his spiritual sense permeated out, a burst of violent aura swept over, directly sweeping away his spiritual sense without a trace. A sharp pain erupted in his sea of consciousness, forcing Ning Cheng to take a few steps back. However, the spiritual consciousness he had just extended had long since disappeared. This place could even strangle one's spiritual consciousness. It would have been strange if a person could survive. Ning Cheng had just advanced to the Tao transformation realm, had a starry sky sea of consciousness, and cultivated a spiritual consciousness cultivation method. As for how strong his spiritual consciousness was, he knew it best. Chapter 1098. Previously, Peng Yuan had said that even Tao integration experts would die if they entered. Tao integration experts were super mighty almighties who had integrated the heaven and earth Tao. Even such a person could not pass through the perpetual moon abyss. Most likely, only a good fortune treasure like the mysterious yellow bead could allow one to pass through it safely. Perhaps he could enter the mysterious yellow bead, and then let the mysterious yellow bead take him out of this place, but Ning Cheng knew that it was just a dream. If he really did this, then exposing the mysterious yellow bead to a lot of people would not be a big deal. The most important thing was that he might not be able to use the mysterious yellow bead to leave this place. In the mysterious yellow bead, one would indeed be safe and sound. However, in such a place, he could not even stretch out his spiritual consciousness, so how could he know which direction the mysterious yellow bead should take? Newcomer. Do you want to go out? A voice suddenly rang out. Ning Cheng quickly turned around, only to see a gray-haired woman standing not far from him. Although the traces of vicissitudes on her face were obvious, one could still feel that she was once delicate and beautiful. Yes, I just arrived and want to go out. Ning Cheng had stayed in this place for more than 10 days and had long since come to know that there were too many strange people in the Perpetual Moon sect. Since this gray-haired woman did not know him, she most likely lived on the edge of the Perpetual Moon abyss and had never been to the public square. Hee, if you don't want to work with the black and white beard, then work with me, Chu Manha. Let me take a look at your ring. Do you have the qualifications to cooperate with me? The gray-haired woman chuckled and said unhurriedly. Ning Cheng took a few steps back, as his tone turned cold. Wu Lin wanted to see my ring, and was almost killed by me. Are you sure you want to see my ring? Ning Cheng knew who the black-white Su Cheng was. He was the only primordial chaos divine emperor in the entire Perpetual Moon sect who didn't study the Tao runes on the boulders or cultivate. Not only was Black-White Beard a primordial chaos sacred emperor, but he was also a top-notch array Tao expert. It was said that the confinement array he set up could trap a half-step world creation expert. Because the Black-White Beard's array Tao was very strong, many people pinned their hopes on the Black-White Beard when they were first trapped. The Black-White Beards would give them whatever they wanted. One could even say that the majority of the materials, ores, spirit crystals, and spirit veins belonging to the powerhouses of the Perpetual Moon sect ended up in the hands of the Black-White Beards. Unfortunately, even after millions of years of research, the Black and White Beards still could not find a way out, nor could they break through the Perpetual Moon gate. You can defeat Wu Lin. Chu Manha obviously did not have enough preparation. When she heard that Ning Cheng was able to defeat Wu Lin, her tone suddenly showed a trace of amazement. It was not a secret that Wu Lin possessed the 5 elements primal world, which meant that he suffered the least loss in strength within the Perpetual Moon sect. Not waiting for Ning Cheng to answer, she once again spoke, if you can defeat Wu Lin, then I think that we really can cooperate. I need 9 high-grade God spiritual veins and 2 supreme-grade God spiritual veins. The more divine crystals there were, the better it would be. As for the refining materials, the higher the grade, the better it would be. It would be best if they could be used to refine high-grade divine artifacts. As long as you give me these things, I believe that in a few tens of thousands of years, I can break through the perpetual moon gate and find the way out. Ning Qing sneered in his heart. Not to mention that he did not have these things. Even if he had these things, he would not give them to this woman. He would rather believe in the black and white bearded man. The gray-haired woman seemed to see the disdain in Ning Cheng's eyes and spoke up without any care. If you treat the space within the perpetual moon gate as a void, then if you have the ability to tear through the void here, wouldn't you be able to leave the perpetual moon gate? Do I need you to tell me this? Ning Cheng naturally knew that tearing space would allow him to leave the perpetual moon gate. If someone could tear through the space here, would they have waited until today? Someone would have torn through the space here a long time ago. To tear through the space here, I'm afraid that you would need to be at least at the half-step world creation realm. None of the people locked in the perpetual moon gate have reached the half-step world creation realm. Therefore, it is impossible to tear through the space here. In fact, as a starry sky cultivator, I'm afraid that you don't know that there are many positional planes that don't cultivate at all. They only develop science and technology. If Ning Qing didn't care about the gray-haired woman's previous words, then when the gray-haired woman spoke about developing science and technology, Ning Qing immediately paid attention to it. In fact, there were too many technological planets in the vast starry sky. Among the 4 grand starry skies, there were many technological planets. However, as Ning Cheng's cultivation grew higher and higher, he found that technological planets had a bottleneck. Once a starry sky cultivator reached the Tao confirming realm, the development of technology would come to a halt. No matter how powerful the technology was, it seemed that it couldn't stop a Tao confirming realm powerhouse. Therefore, after reaching the Tao confirming realm, Ning Cheng rarely came into contact with things related to technology. When he used a technological starship to escape in the land of broken laws, Man Huishan could only stare at him. Perhaps Man Huishan recognized that he used a technological starship but couldn't take out such a thing. I've studied the results of technological planets. Technological planets regard the void interfaces that we talk about as multidimensional spaces. Although the distance between adjacent spaces looks very close, the truth is that these distances are distorted. If you really want to cross them, I'm afraid that you won't be able to reach the space next to you even after countless years. This doesn't even take into account the space storms and space distortions between the spaces. However, between the interfaces of multidimensional spaces, there are countless space nodes. Once you find these nodes, you can easily move from one space to another. Over the years, I've been searching for these nodes through technological means and the Tao of array formations, and I've found great results. As Chu Manhe spoke until here, Ning Cheng's expression changed. He had studied the refinement of technological starships and read Old Man Kong He's countless technological jade strips. At the same time, he was also an expert in the Tao of array formations. Moreover, he had also studied the insights on the Tao of array formations left behind by Nyenyen. If it came to the Tao of array formations alone, his current attainments in the Tao of array formations would have already reached the level of a top-grade spirit array master. Because he was proficient in these things, he felt that Chu Manhe's words made sense. Seeing Ning Cheng shocked by her own words, Chu Manhe spoke up with even more pride. In fact, you can think about it. When you tear through the void from a low-level interface to another interface, do you not feel as if your heart is moving freely? It's not just because your strength has reached that level, but more importantly, you have an unconscious hunch that you know how to tear through the interface. In fact, what you tear through is the node of the void. As long as I find a void node in the perpetual moon gate space, we can get out. Tell me, am I worth it for you to take out something? As long as you give me tens of thousands of years and some materials, I can definitely find this node. Ning Cheng agreed with Chu Manhe's statement about space nodes. However, Ning Cheng didn't agree with Chu Manhe's statement that tearing through the void in a low-level interface was tantamount to unconsciously tearing a node. Once one's strength reached a certain level, regardless of whether one was at a node or not, one could tear through the interface. I'll take a look at the black and white beards and compare them. If you're really worth investing in, I'll invest in you. Ning Qing didn't want to give away a lot of top-grade artifact crafting materials just because of Chu Manha's words. That's right, it's an investment. I'll go with you. Don't look at that old man's research time compared to mine. He definitely won't have the same results as me. Chu Manha sneered when she heard that Ning Qing wanted to compare. If it were outside, even if Ning Qing took out 10 times what she offered, she wouldn't even bother to look at it. The black and white bearded man lived up to his name. Not only was his beard half black and half white, even his hair was half black and half white. When Ning Qing and Chu Manha walked in, he didn't even raise his head and continued refining array flags. This was the good thing about the perpetual moon gate. No matter who entered the Immortal's cave, there would be no restrictions. No one was willing to use spirit crystals to stabilize the restrictions. I just arrived, and I still have a pile of top-grade artifact crafting materials on me. In addition, I also have a pile of spirit crystals and spirit veins. Dao friend black and white, I'm going to use these things to help you figure out a way to get out. I don't know if you want it or not. Ning Qing had heard about the black and white bearded man. The only way to wake him up from his deduction array formation was to tell him that he wanted to invest. Sure enough, after hearing Ning Qing's words, the black and white bearded man immediately put down the materials in his hands and raised his head. At this time, a face even older than Pang Yuan's, covered with the traces of time. If it weren't for the constant decline in my cultivation, would have figured out a way to get out 3 million years ago. Unfortunately, my cultivation continues to decline, and I'm getting older and older. Every time, I just lack a little bit. To Ning Qing's surprise, the black and white bearded man's first sentence was not to ask Ning Qing how much he wanted to give him, but to sigh with emotion. Ning Qing quickly told him what Chu Manha had said. He wanted the black and white bearded man to tell him his direction, which would allow him to better judge who to invest in. As a top-grade spirit array master and a technological powerhouse, Ning Qing didn't worry about being deceived. After Ning Qing finished speaking, Chu Manha's eyes filled with pride. In her opinion, the black and white bearded man just wanted to use an array formation to break open the perpetual moon gate. Over the years, the black and white bearded man had used up so many resources and still couldn't open the perpetual moon gate, which meant that this method didn't work. The black and white bearded man waited for Ning Qing to finish before speaking in a calm voice, multidimensional space. Void nodes. That's just something children play with. Even if you study it for tens of millions of years, you still can't open Ji Fengyu's perpetual moon gate. Ji Fengyu's perpetual moon gate has nothing to do with space, but with the laws of time. Your direction was wrong from the beginning. When Ning Qing heard this, his heart suddenly tightened. He felt that the black and white bearded man was right. Impossible, the perpetual moon gate is clearly a space. Only a space-type law array formation can imprison this place. It has nothing to do with time. How can the laws of time arrange a space-type array formation? It's absolutely impossible. Chu Manha immediately screamed. The black and white bearded man directly crossed her countless years of research. No one would be able to accept such a thing. The black and white bearded man ignored Chu Manha and directly opened a large cabinet, pointed to the countless array formation models inside, and said, "Take a look at these array formation models of mine. Maybe you will understand." Chapter 1099. Ning Qing and Chu Manha were both top-grade array Dao grandmasters. Although the black and white bearded array Dao model was built on the basis of spatial fluctuations, it still had a Dao charm of the passage of time. In just a moment, Ning Qing and Chu Manha fell into the depths of these Dao array formations. The two of them even began to observe one by one, completely forgetting the main purpose of their visit. The black and white bearded man did not ask about it, and just let Ning Qing and Chu Manha study it, while he himself continued to refine the array flags. After a few days, Ning Cheng finally raised his head. There was a trace of excitement in his eyes. The black and white beard's time array model vaguely contained a trace of the Sea of Twilight's intent divine power. What did this mean? It showed that the black-white beards had grasped a trace of Ji Fenyu's arrangement of the perpetual moon gate. He had comprehended sunset's twilight in the Sea of Twilight and was very familiar with the Sea of Twilight. The black-white beards spoke the truth. The perpetual moon gate did not use the laws of space to form a space, but the laws of time to form a space. Ning Cheng suddenly recalled the scene of him and Yu Qing standing in the Sea of Twilight. He carried Mu Qing on his back as he rushed towards the dusk. The closer it was to dusk, the faster he aged, and the closer he was to death. But after the two of them passed the dusk, it was a beautiful dawn. The perpetual moon gate was formed from the Sea of Twilight spirit technique. Therefore, to pass through the perpetual moon gate, one must first use an array formation to find the perpetual moon gate sunset's twilight and then rush through the dusk. Sea of Twilight. Ning Cheng muttered to himself. He found that he finally understood the method used by the perpetual moon sect. It truly was a law of time-related spirit technique, the Sea of Twilight. Unfortunately, he could not even find the perpetual moon gate's dusk, let alone rush out of it. His sunset's twilight could only be regarded as a grain of sand in the Sea of Twilight. Although the perpetual moon Holy Emperor had amazing talent, he could not understand even a billionth of the Sea of Twilight's great spirit technique. The black and white bearded man looked at Ning Cheng with appreciation and nodded, "Not bad. In just a few days, you can already see the Sea of Twilight from my array formation model. It's not impossible for you to break through to become a divine array master with your level of array Tao. What else did you see? The sunset is infinitely beautiful, but it's nearing dusk. After crossing the dusk, it is the first glimmer of dawn." Ning Cheng excitedly spoke out the insights that he had gained in the Sea of Twilight. This was not something that he could see, but rather the insights that he had gained in the Sea of Twilight. You. The black and white bearded man, who was originally very calm, suddenly stood up and grabbed Ning Cheng's shoulder in excitement. You can actually see through my array formation model that after crossing the dusk is the first glimmer of dawn. Ning Cheng was sweating profusely in his heart. Passing through the dusk was the dawn. He had not seen it from the black and white bearded man's array formation model, but rather his own perception. However, he did not dare to tell the truth. He was afraid that if he told the truth, the black-white beards would be disappointed in him and would not tell him how to break the perpetual moon sect's time array formation. Fortunately, the black and white beards did not care about Ning Cheng's expression. In his view, Ning Cheng had now said that after crossing the dusk, there would be the first glimmer of dawn. Obviously, Ning Cheng had seen through the true role of his array formation model. Good. If I tell you everything I know about the perpetual moon gate's time law array, maybe we can really open the perpetual moon gate. The black-white bearded man spoke with excitement. His cultivation had fallen sharply, and his understanding of the laws of time and the laws of space had plummeted. If Ning Cheng understood what he had to do, maybe he could have a clearer understanding of what to do. Chu Manhe also recovered. Her attainments in the Tao of arrays were better than Ning Cheng's. After looking at the array formation model left by the black-white beards for a few days, and listening to the conversation between Ning Cheng and the black-white beards. At this time, she also realized that the perpetual moon gate might really be a time law array formation. The black-white beards did not care about Ning Cheng and Chu Manhe's thoughts and continued to take out their models and explain them one by one. The laws of time could also open up space. This was the first time Ning Cheng had heard such a theory. He eagerly absorbed the knowledge of the Tao of arrays imparted by the black-white beards. If there was anything he did not understand, he would immediately ask. As time passed, Ning Cheng, Chu Manhe, and the black-white beards completely immersed themselves in the Tao of arrays. In the beginning, the black-white beards continued to explain his Tao of arrays, as well as his understanding of the laws of time tearing through space. At this time, Ning Cheng and Chu Manhe often asked about things that they did not understand. As the black-white beard's explanations became clearer and clearer, Ning Cheng and Chu Manhe asked fewer and fewer questions. In the end, the three of them completely formed a discussion mode. If they did not understand something, they would immediately speak up, and the other two would answer. A few months later, Ning Cheng's Tao of arrays soared. The laws of time grand array that the black-white beards had studied for millions of years was once again studied by the three of them. 3 smelly cobblers were better than Zhuge Liang, not to mention that the three of them were not cobblers, but true powerhouses in the Tao of array formations. The black-white beards had studied the perpetual moon gates array formation for millions of years, and their direction was correct. Although Chu Manhe's research direction was wrong, she had studied it for countless years. Ning Cheng joined them for the shortest time, but he had been to the Sea of Twilight and had a lot of insight into the Sea of Twilight Sunset's twilight. When the three of them worked together, they were countless times faster than the black-white beards alone. After another 2 years, the three of them stopped discussing at the same time. The black-white beards had a decadent look on his face and spoke with a lonely tone. Ji Fengyu really is powerful. The Sea of Twilight, he, the Sea of Twilight. Chu Manhe's face also showed the same desolation. The black-white beards' research direction and judgment were correct. What they wanted to find was the location of the sunset in the perpetual moon gate Sea of Twilight. As long as they could find the sunset, they could cross the Sea of Twilight and leave the perpetual moon gate. Today, under the deduction of countless array formation models, the three of them finally found the location of the perpetual moon gate Sea of Twilight. It was precisely because they found the location of the perpetual moon gate Sea of Twilight that the black-white beards and Chu Manhe felt so lonely. Because finding it and not finding it were the same thing. The perpetual moon gate Sea of Twilight was the perpetual moon abyss. If they could cross the perpetual moon abyss and leave the perpetual moon gate, then why would they need to study array formations? The black-white beards and Chu Manhe studied for millions of years, only to return to the starting point. The starting point was the only way out of the perpetual moon gate, the perpetual moon abyss. The perpetual moon abyss is the only way out of the perpetual moon gate. This sentence is true. The black-white beards no longer had the mood to study the array formation models and slowly stood up. Ji Fengyu is really despicable to use such a method. Putting the only way out in the perpetual moon abyss, it's clear that he doesn't want to let people out. Chu Manhe cursed. Although it was the same thing, the black-white beards felt that Ji Fengyu was very powerful, while Chu Manhe felt that Ji Fengyu was despicable. The black-white beards said with a calm voice, "The heavenly Tao never ends, and there is always a line." Ji Fengyu, as a powerhouse who pursues the heavenly Tao, naturally left a line in the perpetual moon gate. Since he left a line, we can't get out because we don't have the ability. Why aren't you disappointed? Is it because we came here for a short time and paid less? Seeing Ning Cheng's calm expression, Chu Manhe couldn't help but ask. Ning Cheng showed a slight smile but did not answer Chu Manhe's words. Instead, he cupped his fists and asked, "I heard that the first realm of the third step of Tao confirming is the creation realm. 2 Tao friends, how many realms are there in the third step of Tao confirming, and what are the differences?" To the surprise of the black-white beards and Chu Manhe, Ning Cheng's question had nothing to do with the method they studied to get out of the perpetual moon gate. Although they had only known each other for more than 2 years, Ning Cheng's insights and understanding of the Tao of arrays had made the black-white beards very appreciative. If a genius in the Tao of arrays like Ning Cheng had studied with him before, maybe he would have found the reason a long time ago. In the third step of Tao confirming, apart from forming one's own world, the other 2 realms are different. Everyone's insights are different, and the world and laws they form are also different. The 3 realms of the third step are also called the 3 realms of creation. The second step is to derive the laws of the universe of one's own world and integrate the laws into the great world. The third step is to step out of the universe, surpassing all living beings, and open the gate of good fortune. This is the creation realm. The black-white beards replied cautiously. What realm does Ji Fengyu have? Ning Cheng had long heard about opening the gate of good fortune. He wondered if Tsang Wei was a third-step powerhouse. The laws of Ji Fengyu's own world were unstable and eventually collapsed. This shows that he barely stepped into the creation realm. The black-white beards said with a sigh. He seemed to be lamenting for such a genius powerhouse. He had completely forgotten about his own situation and who brought it to him. Ning Cheng thanks Dao friend Black-White for dispelling my doubts. I have a few speculations of my own. Ning Cheng cupped his fists and said. It was normal for the black-white beards to not study array formations. After listening to Ning Cheng's words, he nodded and said, Dao friend Ning, please speak. I think Dao friend Black-White's words are right. The heavenly Dao is endless, and there is always a line. If that line really leads to the perpetual moon abyss, do you think it is still a line? Over the years, I'm afraid there have been many people who wanted to leave the perpetual moon abyss, right? Who went there? Ning Cheng asked. Ning Cheng's words suddenly stunned the black-white beards. He came in earlier than Chu Manhe and was one of the first cultivators to enter the perpetual moon gate. How many people were imprisoned in the perpetual moon gate? Perhaps thousands, but how many were there now? More than 100. Except for a few people who fell in the perpetual moon gate, most of them went to the perpetual moon abyss. That's why the perpetual moon abyss doesn't count as the line of life left by Ji Fengyu. Ning Cheng saw the black-white beards in a daze and immediately spoke with certainty. Where is that line of life? Are you saying that the sea of twilight that we inferred is not the perpetual moon abyss? Chu Manhe asked eagerly. If my guesses and feelings are not wrong, then the line of life lies in the perpetual moon abyss. Ning Cheng spoke with certainty. The black-white beards and Chu Manhe looked at each other. Ning Cheng had just denied that the line of life lay in the perpetual moon abyss. But in the blink of an eye, he said that the line of life lay in the perpetual moon abyss. Wasn't this self-contradictory? And he finally understood why Ning Cheng had so much more understanding about the Sea of Sea than him. And Moon Sea. And although he also knew that Ning Cheng's comprehension ability far exceeded his own, but it was still not normal. Cheng also knew that Moon Feng White Cheng's understanding. After witnessing Ji Fengyu's death, the Sea of Twilight, a spirit technique created by the laws of time, coupled with the results of his millions of years of research, if Ning Cheng still couldn't determine where the setting sun was, then he wouldn't be a genius, but an idiot. Ning Cheng then looked at Chu Manhe and asked, You've been living on the edge of the perpetual moon abyss, so you must have observed the cultivators comprehending on the boulders in front of the perpetual moon abyss? Maybe they rushed into the perpetual moon abyss and disappeared, or maybe they disappeared directly from the boulder. Chu Manhe fully understood Ning Cheng's meaning. With the black-white beard's array formation model and millions of years of research, she, like Ning Cheng, already had a good understanding of this time spirit array. Now that Ning Cheng spoke about the boulder, she felt that Ning Cheng was right. Many thanks, Dao friend Ning. I'll go take a look. Chu Manhe spoke and immediately left. Ning Cheng and the black-white beard exchanged communication pearls before saying, Dao friend Black-White, I'll go inform everyone. If our inference is correct, we'll contact each other after we get out. Ning Cheng naturally would not miss such a good opportunity to make friends with a bunch of primordial chaos holy emperors. Ji Fengyu had taken a liking to the people trapped in the perpetual moon gate, so how could they be simple? Being trapped in the perpetual moon gate for nearly 10 million years without falling, it definitely wasn't simple. The black-white beard quickly spoke up, Dao friend Ning, if you hadn't come here this time, I'm afraid I would have died of old age in the perpetual moon gate. Your inference is 90% correct, and we all benefited from you. Ning Cheng spoke up with a straight face, Dao friend Black-White, you're wrong. If it weren't for your millions of array Dao deductions, I might have been able to find it in the end. But I'm afraid that would have taken millions of years. After a few million years, my cultivation would have dropped by a lot, and I might have fallen into a predicament like you. Therefore, the biggest credit goes to you. I just stood on the shoulders of a giant, plus some luck. You're the giant. If it weren't for the sake of making friends with Dao friend, would have called you Senior Black-White. Hearing Ning Cheng's sincere tone, the Black-White beard knew that Ning Cheng meant what he said. He also laughed and said, I also want to make friends with Dao friend Ning, but please don't call me Senior. In fact, there was no need for Ning Cheng to inform them. When the Black-White beard laughed, many cultivators swarmed over. Who in the Perpetual Moon Gate didn't know that the Black-White beard was researching a way out? After all, everyone had put in a lot of effort. As for Chu Manhe, only a few people knew that she was also researching a way out. Now that the Black-White beard was laughing so happily, it meant that the Black-White beard had achieved some results. Maybe they could even get out. Who would want to fall behind in this kind of thing? When everyone saw the Black-White beard and Ning Cheng coming out together, they started to have some doubts. After all, Ning Cheng was the child of wealth. If the Black-White beard became happy because Ning Cheng took out spirit crystals, then they would have been happy for nothing. The Black-White beard saw the crowd coming over and said in a clear voice, Dao friends, I, the Black-White beard, have received a lot of support from everyone over the years. Many friends here have taken out crystals and materials for me to deduce the way out of the Perpetual Moon Gate. For millions of years, I didn't dare to be careless. It's just that my talent is limited, and I've always lacked that epiphany. The heavenly Tao is endless. There is always a chance of survival, and Tao friend Ning Cheng is that chance sent by the heavenly Tao. I, Tao friend Ning Cheng, and Tao friend Chu Manhe have worked hard for several years. Finally, we found the way out of the Perpetual Moon Gate. A burst of cheers interrupted the Black-White beard's words. Even a primordial chaos holy emperor couldn't contain the crazy joy in his heart at this time. No one could remain calm after being trapped in the Perpetual Moon Gate for millions of years. Perhaps only Ning Cheng could remain calm. After all, he had been trapped here for less than 3 years. Almost everyone here knew Ning Cheng, and when they heard that Ning Cheng had made great efforts, they all came up to exchange communication pearls with Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng was not only the child of wealth, but he also gave everyone a way out. As such, they couldn't help but thank him. The Perpetual Moon Gate is a grand array. I won't explain the principle of this grand array. It would be too complicated to explain. I can only tell you that the Perpetual Moon Gate was created by Ji Fengyu's Sea of Twilight. Therefore, if you want to leave the Perpetual Moon Gate, you must first comprehend Ji Fengyu's time spirit technique on the Dao Charm boulder in front of the Perpetual Moon Abyss, the Sea of Twilight. At this point, the Black-White beard paused and looked at Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng understood the meaning of the Black-White beard. He wanted him to simulate the Sunset's Twilight spirit technique and describe his insights in the Sea of Twilight. Sunset's Twilight was his spirit technique, and if he wanted to teach it, he must first obtain his consent. Ning Cheng naturally wanted to make friends with so many primordial chaos holy emperors through a spirit technique simulation. Besides, he knew that simulating the Sunset's Twilight spirit technique didn't mean that he could impart it. Moreover, his Sunset's Twilight might not even be worth mentioning in front of these primordial chaos powerhouses. Seeing Ning Cheng nod, the Black-White beard felt that he had not misjudged him. He said with joy, because only Dao friend Ning has a perception of the Sea of Twilight spirit technique, if we want to leave the Perpetual Moon Gate, we must listen to Dao friend Ning's Dao discussion on the laws of time spirit technique, the Sea of Twilight. A group of primordial chaos holy emperors listening to a Dao transformation holy emperor's Dao discussion sounded a bit funny. But no one felt that it was inappropriate and thanked Ning Cheng one after another. Ning Qing didn't decline because he was the only one who had been to the Sea of Twilight. He walked to the front of the crowd and saw that Chu Manhe had also returned. It seemed that Chu Manhe didn't want to try it first. Dao friends, when it comes to cultivation, everyone is stronger than me. It is my honor to be friends with you all. I also hope that whether in the Perpetual Moon Gate or after leaving the Perpetual Moon Gate, our friendship will last forever. Ning Qing spoke with a lofty tone. In fact, everyone understood what he meant. That is, everyone should remember to not forget who saved them. Don't be an ungrateful white-eyed wolf. However, no one felt dissatisfied. Ning Qing had given away 20 million spirit crystals the moment he arrived. At that time, Ning Qing didn't know if he could leave the Perpetual Moon Gate. Without knowing if he could leave or not, it was extremely generous to take out so many spirit crystals at will. I can't describe the Sea of Twilight. I walk in the Sea of Twilight, and the setting sun in the Sea of Twilight symbolizes death. With every breath, I get closer to death. I wanted to retreat, but I suddenly had a realization. What was there to fear about life and death? Life between heaven and earth was like a white steed passing by suddenly. In the gap between the white steed passing by, I might as well do what I want to do. I want to know what's behind the setting sun. Even if it's death, I want to see what death is. I rushed towards the setting sun. The passage of time in the Sea of Twilight took away my lifespan, took away my appearance, but left behind an eternal Tao charm. I comprehended my own spirit technique, Sunset's Twilight. After that, Ning Qing brought out the void cold light spear in his hand. A setting sun appeared in the distance. The setting sun brought with it a red glow, looking extremely beautiful. However, the setting sun was about to set, and the beauty was about to disappear. Everyone's attention was attracted by the faint beauty of the setting sun. Ning Qing's void spear swept out, and the time in this space stagnated. Ning Qing took the initiative to break this stagnation. With another sweep of the long spear, the setting sun fell, and a round of dawn replaced the setting sun, replacing it with a boundless vitality. The setting sun is infinitely beautiful, but it's near dusk. Dusk has an end, and beyond it is the dawn. Ning Qing knew that he wasn't qualified to discuss the Tao. Everyone here had a better understanding of the Tao than him. Therefore, he simply used the simplest and most straightforward way to express the Tao charm through the last move, Sunset's Twilight. Chapter 1101. Good. After Ning Qing finished the Tao discussion in a short time, the dozens of primordial chaos holy emperors applauded in unison. Ning Qing's story and Tao charm narration were both brief descriptions, but he clearly explained the Sunset's Twilight spirit technique. He even simulated the Tao charm of the laws of time in the middle. Among the people here, which one of them did not have powerful qualifications, as such Ning Qing's words almost made all of them understand what he meant. The black-white-beard man stood up with a crystal ball in his hand and said, Tao friend Ning's Tao discussion of the spirit technique was very clear, so I recorded it into a crystal ball. I will put this crystal ball next to the perpetual moon abyss. Today, we will all go out. In the future, there might be other cultivators trapped here. I hope that as long as the perpetual moon gate exists, this crystal ball will exist here. I don't want others to end up like us, trapped here for countless years. These people had been trapped in the perpetual moon gate for countless years, so they naturally understood the words of the black-white-beard man. A top-level powerhouse trapped in a place, unable to cultivate, unable to roam the void freely, that kind of depression was not something ordinary people could understand. Cultivating the Tao was indeed for longevity, but it was also for living a carefree life. No one would want to live a long life that was restricted. Therefore, as soon as the words of the black-white-beard man came out, everyone immediately agreed with him. Ning Qing also said, although the Tao charm on the boulder platform is the exit array gate, my ability is limited. What I demonstrated was just a corner of the Sea of Twilight. Perhaps not everyone will be able to leave this place in one piece, but I still wish everyone the best of luck. In case anyone can't comprehend the Tao charm and eventually falls in the perpetual moon abyss, we naturally can't blame Tao friend Ning. We all know what Tao friend Ning has done for us. Immediately, a primordial chaos holy emperor stood up to support Ning Cheng. The black-white beard man nodded, that's right. I'll say one last thing. It hasn't been easy for us to be together for so many years. Cultivating the Tao is also a cultivation of the heart. Anyone who can get out of here will not forget whose credit it is. I'm old, but it doesn't matter. Tao friend Ning is young and has a bright future. I hope that when we meet in the future, everyone can remember how they came out. Even without the black-white beard man's reminder, most people remembered Ning Cheng's kindness when Ning Cheng distributed the crystal stones. Martial cultivators knew that the great Tao was merciless, and they would absolutely not be lenient when fighting for the resources and future of the great Tao. But in a situation where there was no conflict of interest, there were not many people who would toss aside the debt of saving their lives. Most people still remembered Ning Cheng and the black and white beard's kindness. I'll be the first to give it a try. Every day that Chu Manhe stayed here was one more day of suffering. She originally wanted to comprehend the traces of the Tao runes of the setting sun on the giant stone platform. But after thinking about it, he decided to ask Ning Cheng about the Tao charm of the Sea of Twilight. Fortunately, before she could ask, Ning Cheng publicly discussed the Tao. Now that Chu Manhe heard Ning Cheng's Tao discourse, she naturally couldn't wait to give it a try. At the edge of the perpetual moon abyss, hundreds of people surrounded it. Everyone's gaze fell on Chu Manhe. Chu Manhe was also a little excited. She slowly walked to the huge stone platform and sat down. In less than half an incense stick worth of time, the aura of the Tao charm of the laws of time surrounded her. Chu Manhe's figure slowly became blurry. After a dozen breaths, the place where Chu Manhe was sitting suddenly exploded with a sunset glow. Immediately after, Chu Manhe was swept away by the sunset glow and disappeared without a trace. I saw it. Tao friend Chu definitely didn't fall into the perpetual moon abyss. She went out, she really went out. A short holy emperor couldn't help but feel excited. With Chu Manhe as an example, the rest of the people could no longer resist the urge to leave. Fortunately, everyone here was a Tao fusion powerhouse, and they knew that this was not the time to fight. At the suggestion of the black and white beard, they gave Ning Cheng the second chance to leave. Ning Cheng also felt a little excited. If he was trapped in another place, he could still cultivate. But now that he was trapped in the perpetual moon gate and couldn't even cultivate, he naturally didn't want to stay here. Standing on the suspended boulder in the perpetual moon abyss, Ning Cheng's mind fell on the traces of the Tao charm on the boulder. He had already been to the Sea of Twilight and had even demonstrated the spirit technique, Sunset's Twilight, that he comprehended in the Sea of Twilight. At this moment, Ning Cheng almost sat on the boulder and felt the same Tao charm aura as the one in the Sea of Twilight. At this moment, Ning Cheng felt like he was once again standing in the boundless gravel of the Sea of Twilight. Time continued to flow past him, and a setting sun appeared in the distance. The Tao charm of the setting sun condensed along with Ning Cheng's insights, and a multicolored light rolled out. Ning Cheng felt relieved. But just when he thought he was about to be teleported away, a slender figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Yu Qing. Wasn't Yu Qing on his back? When did she fall from his back? The whirlpool of the Sea of Twilight swept over again. Seeing that Yu Qing was about to be swept away, Ning Cheng quickly rushed over. How could he leave Yu Qing alone here to die? The moment Ning Cheng rushed over to grab Yu Qing, Ning Cheng knew that it was over. The Tao charm of the twilight on the boulder had actually disturbed his mind. Not only did he not get teleported away with the multicolored light at the critical moment, but he even jumped out of the teleportation light. This was definitely Ji Fengyu's doing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of Yu Qing, who had gone through thick and thin with him on the sunset teleportation platform in the Sea of Twilight. Because Yu Qing had fallen in the time wilderness, Ning Cheng always felt a little guilty. Especially after seeing the 10 ice walls, Ning Cheng felt even more sad. This trace of guilt and sadness finally hit him when he left the Perpetual Moon Gate. The sunset teleportation platform in the Perpetual Moon Gate was triggered by the Tao charm of the Twilight. Ning Cheng's experience in the Sea of Twilight made him feel a trace of regret when he saw the Tao charm of the Twilight again. Seeing the flickering multicolored light around Ning Cheng, everyone understood that Ning Cheng had also succeeded. The flickering multicolored light indicated that the Tao charm of the Sea of Twilight was about to teleport him away. But then, everyone looked at the boulder platform in disbelief. Ning Cheng had rushed out of the multicolored light at the critical moment and fell into the Perpetual Moon Abyss. At this moment, no one spoke. The Holy Emperor, who wanted to follow Ning Cheng and be the third to leave the Perpetual Moon Gate, subconsciously retracted his footsteps. Ning Cheng had evolved the Tao charm of the Sea of Twilight once. Although Ning Cheng's evolution wasn't even 1,000th of the Sea of Twilight, it had pointed out a path for everyone. Now that the teacher who guided the way had not passed through the Perpetual Moon Gate's teleportation array, how could the rest of the people pass through? As for Ning Cheng, who fell into the Perpetual Moon Abyss, no one expected him to survive. Even Tao perfection powerhouses couldn't survive after falling into the Perpetual Moon Abyss, let alone a Tao transformation Holy Emperor like Ning Cheng. The moment Ning Cheng realized that something bad had happened, he immediately entered the mysterious yellow bead. At this moment, nothing else mattered. His life was the most important thing. Ning Cheng had already investigated the horrors of the Perpetual Moon Abyss. With his cultivation and strength, once he fell into the Perpetual Moon Abyss, he wouldn't last more than a few breaths. Everything happened in a very short time. From the time Ning Cheng activated the multicolored light to Ning Cheng rushing into the Perpetual Moon Abyss and entering the mysterious yellow bead, it all happened in just half a breath. When the mysterious yellow bead entered the Perpetual Moon Abyss, everything quieted down. Except for a few holy emperors, no one felt the mysterious yellow aura. While Yen Ji was still in secluded cultivation, Ning Cheng sat inside the mysterious yellow bead and sighed. He had finally found a way out with the help of the black and white beards, but he still ended up falling into the Perpetual Moon Abyss. If he had known this, he would have come in 2 years in advance. Carefully sweeping out with his spiritual consciousness from the mysterious yellow bead, the surrounding roaring shockwaves caused Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness to feel a burst of pain. Even when he stretched out his spiritual consciousness, in just a moment, it was swept away by the inexhaustible and terrifying berserk aura, before it completely disappeared. Ning Cheng quickly retracted his spiritual consciousness. What he saw just now was just chaos. Apart from the violent aura, there was nothing but violent aura. If he didn't have the mysterious yellow bead, he would have already turned to ashes. It was just like when he fell into the void vortex, the mysterious yellow bead had saved his life. Ning Cheng sighed. Since he had already fallen into the Perpetual Moon Abyss, he had to accept this fact. Back when he crossed the graceful star ocean, he couldn't release his spiritual consciousness in the heavenly star space. But he used the heavenly star space to temper his spiritual consciousness. Perhaps in the Perpetual Moon Abyss, he could temper his spiritual consciousness. Fortune and misfortune went hand in hand, who knew? Although the mysterious yellow bead's world was not completely perfected, Ning Cheng could still cultivate in it. In order to let his spiritual consciousness gain a foothold in the Perpetual Moon Abyss, Ning Cheng, in addition to stabilizing his cultivation, also began to cultivate his own modified Dark Nether Spirit Devourer. In the beginning, as soon as Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness left the mysterious yellow bead, it would immediately turn into fragments and disappear without a trace. Even his sea of consciousness would tumble for a while. If replaced by anyone else, even with the Dark Nether Spirit Devourer, they would not dare to temper their spiritual consciousness in the Perpetual Moon Abyss. But Ning Cheng dared because he had the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill. Without the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill, Ning Qing naturally would not dare to temper his spiritual consciousness in the perpetual moon abyss. Because it was not tempering one's spiritual consciousness, but weakening one's sea of consciousness. Perhaps after tempering one's spiritual consciousness for a few years, one's spiritual consciousness would not increase, and one's sea of consciousness would collapse. Half a year later, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness could finally stretch out 10 feet of the mysterious yellow bead and could even stay in the perpetual moon abyss for a dozen breaths. When he took it back, the perpetual moon abyss would not devour it. This progress made Ning Qing ecstatic. He finally found a cultivation method, a modified dark nether spirit devourer plus the perpetual moon abyss plus the Empyrean consciousness transmutation pill. How strong would the spiritual consciousness tempered in this method be? The berserk nature of the perpetual moon abyss could even kill a Tao integration realm powerhouse. If the powerful spiritual sense he had tempered in the perpetual moon abyss was no longer a simple spiritual consciousness thorn and spiritual consciousness blade attack, but a divine ability, how terrifying would it be? Thinking of this, Ning Qing felt a little excited and even looked forward to it, forgetting that he was still trapped in the perpetual moon abyss. Chapter 1102. In addition to the spiritual consciousness blades and spiritual consciousness thorns, he also cultivated the relatively powerful dark consciousness storm. Dark consciousness storm was not only a spirit technique, but also a powerful spirit technique. The dark consciousness storm spirit technique required one to control the laws of space, which combined the spiritual consciousness with the space spirit technique to attack the opponent. It was not an attack on the opponent's sea of consciousness, but a physical attack. Ning Cheng's sea of consciousness far exceeded those in the same realm, and he could even easily deal with those on a higher level. However, if he wanted to use the dark consciousness storm to deal with opponents much stronger than him, it still lacked a lot. At this time, Ning Cheng's dark consciousness storm spirit technique had only reached the threshold. However, using the dark consciousness storm spirit technique against powerful opponents was not as useful as using other spirit techniques. Now that he had tempered his spiritual consciousness in the perpetual moon abyss, his spiritual consciousness had not only grown stronger than before, but the toughness of his spiritual consciousness had also improved. Now, his spiritual consciousness could even tear through the Tao charm laws. If he used the spiritual consciousness he had tempered in the perpetual moon abyss and brought out the dark consciousness storm, his attack power would definitely be several times stronger than before. Even if it grew several times stronger, facing a powerhouse with much higher cultivation than him, he wouldn't be able to create a dark consciousness storm that could engulf the opponent in his spiritual consciousness storm and let him slaughter them. If he met an opponent similar to him, he might be able to do this, but what was the point of it? In Ning Cheng's view, a spirit technique was something that could turn the tide of the battle at a critical moment and help him win. Against opponents with similar cultivation, he had too many spirit techniques at his disposal. As such, he didn't need to use the dark consciousness storm at all. The great Tao was simple, so why couldn't spirit techniques be simple? His spirit techniques didn't require him to be in a stalemate with his opponent, but as long as he had a chance to win. What if he could make the dark consciousness storm and spiritual consciousness thorns have the same abrupt attack effect? Compressing his own divine sense into a needle-like attack, and after the thin needle blasted through the opponent's defense, it would suddenly explode like the maximal flame divine ability. Wouldn't that allow him to exert his powerful divine sense to the extreme? It had both the violence of the dark consciousness storm and the simplicity of the spiritual consciousness thorns. Gorgeous spirit techniques might look good, but this kind of spirit technique was even more effective. With a clear direction, Ning Cheng continued to temper his spiritual consciousness while consciously using his spiritual consciousness to deduce new spirit techniques. In the beginning, Ning Cheng compressed the dark consciousness storm, but Ning Cheng soon discovered that it was still a dark consciousness storm. In the end, Ning Cheng simply rolled up all of his spiritual consciousness and used the laws of space and the laws of time to bypass the domain he simulated in the perpetual moon abyss before erupting. Just like a shadowless and invisible spiritual consciousness needle, this needle could sweep up all of Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness power, and in the shortest time possible, it could penetrate into the opponent's body. Then, just like the maximal flame spiritual technique, it would explode before the opponent could even react. The explosion of divine sense was several times stronger than the explosion of divine essence. Ning Cheng was confident that he could even severely injure a Tao Essence Divine Emperor. The only regret was that this kind of explosion would consume one's divine sense. It was a method of harming oneself while harming the enemy. Since Ning Cheng had the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, he didn't care about this desperate spirit technique. What he wanted was a method. He couldn't rely on the 5-colored star splitter arrow every time something happened. The 5-colored star splitter arrow wasn't omnipotent. It also consumed a lot of spirit essence and spiritual consciousness. Boom! 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 After Ning Cheng started simulating the new spiritual consciousness spirit technique, the space around the mysterious yellow bead continued to explode. Ning Cheng had just started simulating this spirit technique, so he naturally wouldn't blast out all of his spiritual consciousness and condense it into an explosive spiritual consciousness needle. If that were the case, his Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill would disappear before he could finish cultivating this spirit technique. Not only would he lose the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, but his Sea of Consciousness would also suffer severe damage. Another half a year passed, and Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness could now stay within a range of 3 feet for a few minutes. Moreover, his new spiritual consciousness spirit technique was even more shadowless and invisible. Once activated, it could explode one's spiritual consciousness for half a breath. Once he poured all of his spiritual consciousness into this spirit technique, it would be several times more powerful than the God-slaying bead that cut off the violent aura of his spiritual consciousness. However, once he poured all of his spiritual consciousness into this spirit technique, even with the help of the Empyrean Consciousness Transmutation Pill, he wouldn't be able to recover his vitality in a short time. Boom! When Ning Cheng blasted away a large portion of the violent aura within 5 feet of the perpetual moon abyss, Ning Cheng stopped practicing. He knew that he had succeeded with this spiritual consciousness spirit technique. This spiritual consciousness would be called Dark Consciousness Explosion in the future. Tempered in the perpetual moon abyss, the spiritual consciousness contained a violent aura that could produce a powerful tearing sensation. This tearing sensation wasn't just a physical tearing. If it struck a cultivator, it could even tear apart the other party's corporeal body in Tao charm laws. As Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness grew stronger and stronger in the perpetual moon abyss, he no longer acted like a headless fly. Instead, he chose a direction and kept moving forward. With things to do, Ning Cheng didn't know if time passed quickly or slowly. When Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness stretched out a few dozen feet in the perpetual moon abyss, Ning Cheng suddenly felt an emptiness outside of his spiritual consciousness. The violent aura he had used to temper his spiritual consciousness had completely disappeared. Did he rush out of the perpetual moon abyss? As Ning Cheng thought of this in his heart, he immediately rushed over, and immediately felt the endless essence spirit fragments. These essence spirit fragments not only contained traces of powerful Tao charm but also contained a variety of memories and spirit technique fragments. Ning Cheng immediately came out of the mysterious yellow bead and felt the essence spirit fragments around him in shock. How many powerhouses had fallen to produce such an effect? The chaotic Tao charm aura mixed together. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness tempering in the perpetual moon abyss was not in vain. The Tao charm of these essence spirit fragments had all been blasted out by his domain. In fact, even if he had not tempered his spiritual consciousness in the perpetual moon abyss, Ning Cheng did not fear these chaotic essence spirit fragments. He still had the 7 Bridges spirit technique. To deal with these things, the 7 Bridges spirit technique was the best choice. Standing in the midst of the endless essence spirit fragments, Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness was about to carefully stretch out to find out what this place was when he suddenly heard a voice, "You are the only one who survived in the perpetual moon abyss. What is your name?" This voice seemed to come from the ground, but it also seemed to come from the side. Ning Cheng shivered and immediately brought out the everlasting blue thunder fort to protect his body. At the same time, the void cold light spear also appeared in his hand. This spear won't do, but the everlasting blue thunder fort is good. The voice came again, ethereal and without any roots. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness caught it this time. This voice did not seem to have condensed into a solid form. It seemed to be just an essence spirit, or even an incomplete essence spirit. I understand now. You are the origin of the Fallen Soul Gorge. Did you bring the countless fallen souls in the Fallen Soul Gorge here? You even wanted to kill me before, didn't you? Why can you survive in the perpetual moon abyss? Ning Cheng became even more vigilant when he realized that the other party should be the essence spirit that absorbed the souls in the Fallen Soul Gorge. It was because his essence spirit was almost sucked away that he had no choice but to jump down the perpetual moon gate. He did not expect that after jumping down, he would meet the owner. How could he escape? The voice from the abyss remained silent for a long time before slowly speaking, according to normal logic, you should be the one who ruined my plans. As for the Fallen Soul Gorge's powerful 10-directional soul-absorbing array, it has nothing to do with me. Did I ruin his plans? In any case, Ning Cheng felt a lot more relaxed now that he knew that the other party could not directly absorb his essence spirit. The Fallen Soul Gorge's 10-directional soul-absorbing array was powerful. Ning Cheng pondered for a moment and suddenly said, I know who you are. You are Perpetual Moon Holy Emperor Ji Fengyu. Everyone thought that you had fallen, but no one expected you to hide here and absorb the essence spirits of others to restore your cultivation. Even those primordial chaos holy emperors were probably captured by you to restore your cultivation, right? You were the one who set up the 10-direction soul-absorbing array, and it's also for you. The voice turned silent again, and after a while, it spoke again, I don't know if I'm Ji Fengyu or not. I'm just a trace of Ji Fengyu's spiritual sense. Before participating in the war, Ji Fengyu had a premonition that he would not end well, so he left behind a few traces of his spiritual sense. The purpose was to recreate his corporeal body and essence spirit in case something happened. This is one of the places he arranged. Over the years, the Perpetual Moon Abyss Grand Array has helped me integrate countless primordial chaos blood essences and extracted countless essence spirits to absorb. Maybe after a while, I will form my own body. But I'm no longer the Ji Fengyu of the past, not even an avatar. Ning Cheng breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. Ji Fengyu had arranged this essence spirit. Ji Fengyu knew that the consequences would be dire, so he had arranged it in advance. He had not expected that this essence spirit would form a new consciousness after absorbing a large number of primordial chaos holy emperors and even Dao integration powerhouses essence blood, Dao runes, and essence spirits. This was because the things absorbed were too complicated, and the newly formed consciousness slowly melted away Ji Fengyu's own consciousness. If a third-step Almighty could make such a mistake, it showed that third-step Almighties were also human. Ning Cheng felt relieved because he felt that this essence spirit did not pose a threat to him. If the other party had threatened him, he would not have allowed anyone to use that platform to leave. I'm not a threat to you. It's your business that you have the mysterious yellow bead. Even if I wanted to snatch your mysterious yellow bead, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to do anything. You don't have to worry about me. Of course, you're not a threat to me. Even if you stay here for countless years, you won't be able to hurt me, the voice in the abyss continued. Ning Cheng felt more at ease. This guy wanted to recreate his own body and leave this place, but it would probably take him tens of thousands of years. There was no need for him to worry or pay attention to this guy. When I was comprehending the Sea of Twilight's Dao Charm Spirit technique and was about to leave, were you the one behind it? Ning Cheng's tone turned cold. Although he had some scars because of Yuqing, he would not fail in that situation. Now, Ning Cheng finally understood that it was most likely this guy's doing. I can trade with you, but you have to tell me the specific location of the Jiaoliang Mountain's true Yang heart. The essence soul interrupted Ning Cheng's words. The Jiaoliang Mountain I know only came from absorbing the broken fragments of other essence souls. As for the true Yang heart you mentioned, I don't know about it. Then send me to the 9 primordial ice cave, N. The essence soul interrupted Ning Cheng's words again. I can only send you out of the fallen soul gorge. I can't do anything else. Ning Cheng became angry. You can't do this, you can't do that, why should I trade with you? Maybe one day I can climb up from the perpetual moon abyss and teleport away from that platform again. The essence soul turned silent and seemed to feel that Ning Cheng was right. After waiting for half an incense stick worth of time, the essence soul spoke up, your Tao heart is scarred. Even if you have the mysterious yellow bead, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to reach the 3rd step. I have a recalling Bodhi seed, which I obtained from a Tao unification Holy Emperor's ring. I'll give it to you as the price. Recalling Bodhi seed? Ning Cheng asked in doubt. He had never heard of the recalling Bodhi seed before. According to the name, it should be a spiritual object. However, he had seen plants in the universe, but he had never seen a recalling Bodhi seed. It doesn't matter if you don't know about it. I can't explain it to you. When you can't enter the 3rd step of Tao confirming, this recalling Bodhi seed might help you a little. When the time comes, you will know the reason for it. It wouldn't be good for me to explain it to you. This is all I can offer. If you don't want to trade, then forget it. The essence soul didn't feel anxious at all. I'll trade. Ning Cheng finished and took out a jade bottle. At the same time, he wrapped a fist-sized mass of mysterious yellow qi. Ning Cheng was experienced and knew that he couldn't squeeze anything out of this essence soul. Therefore, he simply agreed. Sure enough, after he took out these 2 things, 2 other things suddenly appeared not far in front of him. One was a jade box, and the other was a strange array flag. Ning Cheng grabbed these 2 things, and the jade bottle and the mysterious yellow qi in front of him were also swept away by a force. Ning Cheng opened the jade box and saw a grayish thing lying inside. He couldn't see anything unusual about it. He didn't continue to study it. Instead, he covered it with several layers of restrictions and sent it into the mysterious yellow bead. Ning Cheng had always been careful with things he didn't recognize. After putting away the jade box, Ning Cheng looked at the array flag in his hand. Sure enough, as soon as this array flag touched his hand, Ning Cheng felt a strong twilight Tao charm aura. From the looks of it, this essence soul didn't lie. This array flag should really be the array flag to get out. Ning Cheng put away the everlasting blue thunder fort and let the Tao charm permeate into the array flag. The array flag instantly activated, and a sunset glow rolled out. Ning Cheng instantly disappeared from the perpetual moon abyss without a trace. In just a dozen breaths, Ning Cheng felt something under his feet. He knew that he had truly teleported out. Sweeping out with his spiritual consciousness, he soon saw several saint emperors passing by the edge of his spiritual consciousness. This made Ning Cheng feel relieved. Sure enough, he had returned to the Jiaoliang mountain. That essence soul had kept its word and didn't do anything disgusting. The black clay canyon had so many spirit veins. It was a small matter that he didn't obtain even one, but he ended up being forced to enter the perpetual moon gate. If he hadn't tempered his spiritual consciousness in the perpetual moon gate and successfully cultivated the dark consciousness explosion, he would have suffered a huge loss entering the Jiaoliang mountain. Ning Cheng didn't plan to contact Mang Yong right now. The most important thing for him now was to hurry to the 9 Origins ice cave. Wan Yuhan, whom he met in the perpetual moon gate, had once given him a map of the 9 Origins ice cave. Now, He naturally wanted to go to the Nine Origins ice cave and find the true Yang heart first. As long as he found the true Yang heart, he would have the confidence to melt the Nirvana spear and refine a good fortune divine spear of his own. Even if his good fortune divine spear was a knockoff, it was still several grades stronger than the void cold light spear. Refining the real good fortune divine spear, Ning Cheng had long since given up on it. 5-element spirit water and heaven-opening iron essence were not things he could obtain. Even if he could obtain them, how many years would it take? The Jiaoliang mountain was indeed boundless. Ning Cheng followed the map and walked for more than half a month. He didn't know how many dangers he had to face along the way before he finally arrived at the periphery of the Nine Origins ice cave. After Ning Cheng arrived, he found that he wasn't the only one who came to the Nine Origins ice cave. Even at the periphery of the Nine Origins ice cave, Ning Cheng saw hundreds of cultivators. He even saw several Tao Essence Holy Emperors. The news about the true Yang heart in the Nine Origins ice cave came from the Perpetual Moon Gate. These people shouldn't be here for the true Yang heart, right? The more Ning Cheng thought about it, the more uncertain he became. He stopped a Tao Actualization Holy Emperor and asked, "Tao friend, why did so many people come to the Nine Origins ice cave?" The Tao Actualization Holy Emperor looked at Ning Cheng in confusion and said, "Tao friend, are you not here for the true Yang heart?" Ning Cheng's heart skipped a beat. So it was like this. Damn, did these people in the Jiaoliang mountain all have dog noses?